the illegitimate child of a Chable family. For a girl, how romantic. If this were a novel or a drama, she'd be the Cinderella. But real life isn't a novel or a drama. Right now, she's just a little girl holding her mother's portrait. A man puts his arm around her. He's supposedly her father. He tells two young boys, supposedly her half-brothers, that from today on, she'll be living with them in this house. Even though they don't share the same mother, she's still their sister. Treat her well. A worthless child living with her mother in a tiny one-room apartment or facing a future in an orphanage. Maybe this is better. 6 years later, in the present, she opens a door. Seeing the darkness of the room, she mutters, that damn oldest brother, that damn dad. How could they give him the job of moving my stuff? Knowing how they bully me. Why didn't they just tell me to sleep in the bed already? She sighs. They should be more concerned about the upcoming inheritance. But then she smiles, jumps onto the bed, and continues, whatever. Freedom is mine now. But comically, her upstairs neighbor gives her a gentle reminder. It's noisy. She quickly sits up and apologizes. Then she reflects. From a moment she stepped into that house until she was freed from it, how many days of suffering did she endure? Whether at home or at school, her two half-brothers never stopped harassing her, and her father didn't care about what they did. To escape that hellhole, she worked hard to get into a prestigious university, making others envious, and finally gained her independence. Lying on the bed, she breathes a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the words escape her lips, I did it. And she thinks the dark days are over. I'll study hard, make friends, and live a happy life. The next morning, as the sun slowly rises, she arrives at school. Walking down the hallway with a friend, she overhears other students chatting. Hey, have you guys played that game? I'm on the hard level, and my likability isn't increasing at all. Is it even possible to win? You probably have to pay money to get through it. She turns to her friend and asks, what are they talking about? Her friend replies, oh, you don't know. It's the popular game lately. She wonders a game. Back home, she tries out. The game is called the Duchess's Love Plan. She says to herself, this game looks so childish. How can something with this name be popular? But people seem really excited about it. Touching the screen, she says, I'm not really interested, but since everyone at school is talking about it, I'll check out the content. Let's see. This game is divided into 2 levels, normal and hard. I'll try normal first. This must be the intro video. A colorful and eye-catching video appears on the screen. An ordinary girl, just turned 18, Yvonne. She's the youngest daughter of a duke. 6 years ago, due to an unexpected incident, she was separated from her family. A few days ago, she returned to the duke's family after living as a commoner. A series of events and new relationships surround her. Aim for the 4 guys and increase their Halgan due towards you. You can even become famous and rich by getting rid of the villain who constantly tries to hinder the heroine. If you reach 100% favorability with any of the male characters, you'll receive a confession and get a happy ending. She muttered, piece of cake. Isn't this genre pretty common? Though the art is a plus. Since she had class tomorrow morning, she decided to just play the beginning and then go to sleep. Time ticked by relentlessly. The clock went tick-tock, tick-tock. 3 hours passed. She mumbled tiredly, I can't sleep. This game is more fun than I thought. The system is unique and well-made. The more she thought, the more irritated she became. But then she said, somehow, I feel like I'm watching my own story. The female lead loses her status and lives in poverty, then returns to the Duke's house. As for me, I was brought into a wealthy family by my father. Even my 2 older brothers were wary of my sudden appearance. But the difference between our lives is like night and day. I can't believe the 2 older brothers are also main capture targets. Taming these guys seems interesting. All targets start with 30% favorability at the normal level. Pretty fun, but too easy even for a beginner like me. She muttered again. This should be called easy mode instead of normal. Her phone screen displayed. Completed. You have cleared all stages of the normal level. She murmured, I finally beat the game. Is there anything else to do? Suddenly, she saw the words. You can now purchase the game's hidden ending. What? It costs. She sat up abruptly and exclaimed, 100,001 for just an ending. That's so expensive. Then she muttered, is there no other way? All right, there's hard mode. But do I have to clear that too? It's so late, and I have class tomorrow. She thought for a moment, then made up her mind. Whatever. How hard can hard mode be? She started playing, then thought, in hindsight, I must have been crazy to think I could clear it without much effort. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done this. Reaching hard mode, she exclaimed in surprise, wow, amazing. The villain is now the female lead. Seriously, she kept losing, throwing her phone onto the bed with a thud. Ugh, dead again. Why is this so hard? Even for hard mode, this is ridiculous. Raising the villainess's favorability favorability is such a pain. One wrong choice, and the favorability plummets, leading to instant game over. Plus, all endings lead to death. This is so frustrating. Her phone screen displayed. The Crown Prince's sword has taken Penelope's life. She muttered, "This stupid game." She was mean in normal mode, but from her perspective, did she really do anything wrong? Why do people treat her like this? She kept tapping the screen to retry, saying, "Please, let me live just once." Then she thought the initial goal was to get the hidden ending, but now whatever. She muttered, "What's the villain's fault? She's like this because she was created as a villain." Then she thought, "I want this pitiful villain to live and find happiness with someone." The female lead of normal mode easily won everyone's love. On the other hand, no matter how much she pleads or expresses her feelings, she still ends up unhappy. The hard mode villainess can only await death. She suddenly remembered her own situation living in that hellish house. Her two older brothers and her father constantly bullied and abused her. "Go tell Dad if you feel wronged," they taunt. "You can't, can you? Because Dad doesn't even care about you anymore. He doesn't care if you're hungry or if you're being ostracized at school, because you're not really a member of this family." She thought the villainess's circumstances seemed to coincide with her own. "That's why I keep dying and dying," she muttered. "The Duke's sons keep killing me. I'll definitely end their lives too. Buying favorability with money. I must be crazy." She hit the reset button, ignoring the relentlessly ticking clock. She thought, "Start again, again, die and start again. Game over." She threw her phone down, lying flat on her bed. She thought, "But I still don't know what the ending will be." Even though the sun had begun to rise, she exclaimed, "This is so frustrating." Too tired to play again after being up all night, she closed her eyes and fell asleep. But she held on to the thought, "I'll play again until the villainess's ending isn't just death." The next morning, in a mansion, a maid kept calling, "Mississippi, Mississippi, wake up." She opened her eyes sleepily. Seeing the maid, she thought, "Is she calling me?" Looking around, she thought, "That's right, last night. But when I opened my eyes, I was lying here, not in my own bed. Now I'm not myself anymore. I've become someone else. I prayed all night, but this really isn't a dream." She sat up, her mind racing. "I've actually become the villainess in the game, Penelope Eckhart." Bracing herself to get out of bed, she suddenly cried out, "Ow." Clutching her arm, she thought, "What is this? Why does my arm hurt so much?" She pulled up her sleeve. "Needle marks." The maid said, "You're awake." Glancing at the scowling maid, she thought, "She's exactly like the maid character I saw in the game." Suddenly, she started coughing. The maid quickly said, "I've prepared the water, so please wash your face, Mississippi." She thought, "Oh no, I can't speak. If I choose not to appear here, I can't speak." The maid suddenly looked at her and smirked. Watching her clench her teeth, she thought, "I don't expect her to help me, but a basin full of cold water is too much." She continued to think, "I knew this character was treated coldly, but I didn't expect it to be set up in such detail." Then, standing up and looking at the needle marks on her arm, she said, "Needle marks. This didn't appear when I played the game." But suddenly she paused and reconsidered. It did. It was the moment when the Crown Prince's sword took Penelope's life. She clutched her head, muttering, "This is crazy. No matter what, the ending is bloodshed and death. This is foreshadowing. How could a player know that? This game has some useless details." Lost in thought, she heard the maid knock and say, "Miss, breakfast is ready. Aren't you done yet?" She frowned at the door and muttered, "She's no help at all." Then she put her hand into the basin of cold water and thought, "In that wretched house, I was also treated unfairly. So this isn't so bad." Downstairs, the servant said, "Please have a seat, miss. Please eat, Mississippi. You must be hungry." On the table were foods that were basically inedible. While she thought, "What is this? This garbage is supposed to be food. She told me to try this, didn't she?" The maid smirked at her again. Suddenly, a system appeared, giving her 3 choices. The first choice was, "Are you crazy? Call the chef out here and flip the table." The second was, "Try it first, then make the maid eat it." And the last choice was simply eat. She thought in a daze, these choices, I know them. This is the scene I've had to replay twice already. Since starting this difficulty level, I've chosen wrong twice. And each time, it resulted in game over. I'm currently experiencing withdrawals in this game. She swallowed nervously and continued to think. 2 out of these 3 choices are traps. If I choose the first one, that poor maid will immediately run to the Duke and cry. When that news reaches the eldest son's ears, I'll starve to death in that room, without even a sip of water. I can't choose the second one either. Just then, the second son will pass by the room and witness the scene. And when he intervenes to separate me from the maid, I'll be impaled by a fork on the floor and die. She withdrew her hand and muttered, "Back then, even if I was bored, I could just restart and play a different route, but this is reality. There's no reset button." She resigned herself to the third option. Suddenly, the system chimed, announcing eat. Her body moved involuntarily, her hand grabbing the spoon and repeatedly scooping up the putrid soup. She muttered, "I can't stop." Then, with her other hand, she grabbed a moldy mushroom and actually ate it, gagging repeatedly. She muttered, "How long do I have to eat? How much more until this is over?" She continued to gag, the taste presumably revolting. The maid exclaimed in alarm, "Huh?" Penelope, still eating with her eyes closed and gagging, was unaware of the young Master Reynolds standing before her. She thought, "Why do I always have to go through this?" And then, "I can't stop." Her hand reached for another moldy mushroom. The maid stammered, "Mississippi, you really?" Penelope, while eating, muttered, "How much longer do I have to eat to get past this?" Suddenly, she heard footsteps stop and a male voice ask, "What are you doing?" The maid looked up in alarm and exclaimed, "Oh, it's young Master Reynolds." Penelope, still unaware of him standing there, tilted his head in confusion as she continued to struggle, covering her mouth to keep from vomiting, thinking, "Why do I have to endure this? That wretched house. Back then, my two brothers and my father bullied me. If you feel wrong, tell Dad." But he wouldn't do anything. He didn't care about me at all. Whether I starved or was bullied at school, he didn't care. "Because you don't belong to this family." She thought, "Those two bastards never let me have anything, whether it was food or a normal school life. Even though their mother died before I was born, they treat me like their sworn enemy. Because of those bastards, I have to suffer. They treat me like their sworn enemy." And now, even this game world. While she was struggling, Reynolds walked over and asked, "Hey, are you all right?" He was furious when he saw what was on the table. It was all stuff that couldn't even be called food. He turned to the maid and yelled, "Hey." The maid flinched. He continued, "What are you feeding her?" A lowly maid dares to do this at the master's table. The maid panicked and said, "Young master, it's not like that." Not letting her say anything more, he glared and said, "Get out of here now." The maid still stood there, trying to explain, Young master, it's..." He slammed his hand on the table with a loud bang and furiously said, "If you dare to disrespect the Duke, you should know your place. I'll have to speak to Father about this personally." Then he yelled, "Is there no one outside? Where's the butler?" The butler outside replied, "Second young master, what is the matter?" He ordered, "Drag this maid out and lock her up." The maid was dragged away, still pleading, Young master, I'm sorry. Young master." He turned back to Penelope. Gently placing a hand on her shoulder, he asked, "Are you all right? Why were you foolish enough to eat this stuff? You should have flipped the table and screamed like you usually do." She muttered, "If I hadn't eaten it, you probably would have stabbed me in the neck with that fork." Then she thought, pink hair, thanks to the Duke's second son, the situation was resolved. Was it only that maid who treated the lady like this? All the servants here have the same attitude. If the people in this house, including that bastard, hadn't ignored this wouldn't have happened. He looked at her and continued, "You don't look well. Do you need me to call a doctor? Run. The system gives her 3 choices. Choice 1, what do you care? Choice 2, what's it to you? Get out of my room. Choice 3, stop pretending to be nice." It's sickening. She thought, I have to choose again. Even now, I have to be careful or I'll die. Seriously. Then she thought again, if I didn't know any better, I would thank him for his concern. But I know everything. He doesn't have good intentions. Then she replied, "What do you care?" He was taken aback. "He just said you." Then he continued, "Fine. Anyway, no one in this mansion has the time to waste on someone like you. Find something to eat and then get lost or not. It's up to you." He turned and walked away. She watched him, and suddenly something flickered above his head. It was the number -3%. She blurted out that it was -10% last night. Then she went to the bathroom to wash her face, muttering, "Well, it's still negative anyway." She looked at herself in the mirror and continued muttering, "Penelope Eckhart. I thought so when I saw her in the game, but she really is beautiful. I'm quite happy about it." From her deep crimson hair to her emerald green eyes, everything was identical to the original in the game. So beautiful, yet she left such a terrible impression. As expected, a villain is still a villain. Afterward, she thought carefully. How was Penelope described in the game? The system then appeared. The words the story is told from the perspective of the villainous Penelope Eckhart in hard mode materialized. Do you want to view the character introduction? She selected yes. Character Penelope Eckhart. In the game, she is the only daughter of the Eckhart family, part of the Ioka Empire. However, she was originally a commoner. At the age of 12, her impoverished foster mother, who made a living as a street vendor, fell ill and passed away. She was then adopted by Duke Edward's family because she bore a striking resemblance to their missing daughter. However, as the years passed and she grew older, she didn't develop the characteristic blue eyes of the Eckhart family, nor the light pink hair of the late Duchess Edward. And now, no one cares about her. Even when the Duke is out and about, people call her the fake princess. What was the reason she became the villainess in the story? She muttered to herself, if they were searching, they should have looked for the real daughter. Why bring home an innocent child of unknown origin like that? Then she thought, the fake princess, a poor substitute for the heroine. Just like me, I also experienced a life of poverty, lost my mother, was abandoned, neglected, and even abused by my own family. She muttered again, when I was playing, I never thought I could be so similar to a character in the game. Then she thought, but in the end, I managed to escape from there. It was so hard to escape those wretches. Her voice dropped as she slammed her fist on the table and said, why? It would be so different if I had chosen normal mode. But now, it's really no different from my real life. She continued to think, in just a few hours today, I've learned how unfairly Penelope is treated in this house. Even if she's a fake, if they had any conscience, they wouldn't bully a child officially adopted by the Duke like trash. Penelope was adopted by the Duke's family at the age of 12. Assuming Penelope has been continuously abused since then until now. She thought, and then blurted out, it's no wonder she turned into a villainess. Then she thought again, what can a child do when they scream and no one pays attention? She exclaimed, look who's pitying whom. Then she thought, now, I am Penelope. From now on, I have to live exactly like Penelope in the game. I could be killed by any of the male leads. She shuddered at the thought, and now she was preparing some papers, seemingly for something secretive. With a pen in her hand, she muttered, calm down. Now I'm Penelope. I have to find a way to survive. First, let's organize the information I know. As she put down her pen, preparing to write, she thought, what kind of game world have I entered? Suddenly, the system displayed a notification. In hard mode, the princess's love plan will be very difficult to gain the favor of the male leads. But once gained, it's very easy to lose. She began her investigation with the two sons of the family, Edward and Derek Eckhart, the eldest son and heir to the dukedom. Edward, a stern and cold nobleman, preoccupied with taking over the family business. He's always been indifferent to Penelope. He seems to harbor resentment and contempt for her, believing she usurped the position of his lost younger sister. The second son of the Eckhart dukedom has a very unpleasant personality, always rude and harsh. He often picks fights and argues whenever he sees Penelope. He's also someone the Duke cares about. She muttered, looking closely, they resemble those two wretched older brothers of mine. How can my family be like this? She wrote their names down on paper and thought to herself, Derek and Reynold are the two easiest targets to conquer in normal mode. That's only natural since they're Yvonne's, the female leads, brothers in normal mode. Even if she doesn't date them, it already has a happy ending from the start. And since Penelope isn't blood related to them, the stories in normal mode might be completely different now. She shook her head, crossing out their names and muttering, I don't have any hope for these guys anyway. Then she thought, one of their favorability ratings is already at minus 10% right from the start. Why is that? Because the developers set it up that way, of course. Next is the male lead, Crown Prince Callisto Regulus, Crown Prince of the Ioka Empire, a cruel tyrant who treats human life like grass. But behind this, is there perhaps some hidden tragedy? Since I haven't progressed far enough to conquer Callisto, hopefully, through Penelope's perspective, I can understand him better. She muttered, this Crown Prince. Come to think of it, aside from my brothers, all the information I've gathered is from normal mode. Oh well, she thought again. In normal mode, the tyrant who treats human life like grass changes when the angel Yvonne appears. And after that, he brutally punishes the villainous Penelope. You could say his actions are for justice. But for me, in hard mode, Penelope died brutally under the Crown Prince's sword. She thought to herself, he's no different from the Grim Reaper. In reality, Penelope has been killed many times by him in hard mode. That's why I had to replay it over and over without being able to progress. She furiously crossed out his name, muttering, "It's best to stay away from this guy." Next is Winter Verdandi, the head of the Verdandi Marquis. Winter is a rather eccentric mage who always conceals his identity. He's the head of a trading company and secretly exchanges information and goods. Since I haven't progressed far enough to conquer Winter, hopefully, through Penelope's perspective, I can understand him better. She muttered, "Winter. He plays a role in clarifying Penelope's identity in normal mode." She thought again. With his information-gathering abilities, whenever Penelope hatches a dangerous plan, he protects Yvonne and greatly enhances her reputation. He's polite and romantic. He spares no expense for Yvonne. She muttered, "But what will he be like in hard mode? Since I've probably only been killed by my brother and the Crown Prince, I don't know anything else about him." Then she thought, "I'll just set that aside for now. Even though I don't know anything about him right now, he's still more promising than those other three." She muttered to herself, and finally, there's Icles, Duke Eckhart's secret knight. He's a slave now, but he used to be a nobleman from a fallen kingdom. The Duke saw his talent with the sword and brought him here. Since I haven't progressed far enough to capture Icles' route, hopefully, through Penelope's perspective, I can learn more about him. Out of all the male leads, she suddenly thought, he's probably the one I can rely on the most. One night, the Duke found Icles and paid a hefty sum to buy him. Thanks to his abilities, in the latter half of the normal mode, he was granted the title of knight and the distinction of being the youngest nobleman. And he was the only one who, until the very end, pitted Penelope, probably because she was once his master. But he would always retaliate whenever Penelope offended Yvonne. She murmured, "Although I haven't encountered him in hard mode yet, no matter what, he's the best option for my survival. Because I keep failing to clear hard mode, the information I have is limited. Even if I knew more, I'm not sure how the game system will apply to this reality. But there are two things I'm certain of. I can't let the male lead's favorability drop below 0, and I need to achieve a happy ending with someone before Penelope's coming-of-age ceremony." She muttered, "The day the game's real heroine returns." Then she continued to ponder. In normal mode, the story begins on the day of Penelope's coming-of-age ceremony, when the Duke's real daughter, Yvonne, returns. To be precise, the timing in hard mode is a bit earlier than in normal mode. If I can't finish it by then, everything will unfold as it does in normal mode, and I'll be eliminated by the male leads who adore Yvonne. The fake princess, Penelope, will lose everything on her coming-of-age day because the real princess has returned. She gritted her teeth and muttered, "Even now, the danger of game over is ever present. If that happens, I won't have a shred of hope left." Then she thought, in reality, all that awaits me is death at the hands of the male leads. This can't be happening. I worked so hard to escape that wretched house, and now I'm supposed to die inside a game like this. She exclaimed, "I absolutely will not die like this." And she continued to think, no matter what, I have to survive. I will live so I can return to my previous life. I have to. Lost in thought, she was startled by a knock at the door. Knock, knock. She frantically hid the information sheets. Looking towards the opening door, she saw it was the butler. He said, "Miss, the Duke is looking for you." She thought, that man, how dare he? She turned and thought, how dare he open a princess's door without permission? Even the housekeepers back home weren't this rude. She muttered, "What should I do? Should I get angry?" Then she reconsidered, right, I can't even get angry as I please here. The system gave her 3 options. The first was to throw something and yell, "Do you want to die?" The second was to snap, tell him to come here directly. The third was to reply, "I understand." She muttered, I have to choose one of these damn options first. She suddenly thought, that's right, there's that way too. She replied to the butler, "I understand." Then she thought, good, this is just when the Duke is looking for me. This is my chance. Memories of her past, in that hellish house, flooded back. The cries of Dad, Dad, echoing throughout the house. She held a piece of paper in her hand, bursting into her father's room, excitedly saying, I got in, Dad." Her father, glued to his work, replied, "So, it's not like you came here just to tell me that." Dejectedly, she said, "Father, please allow me to move out. I want to live closer to the university and study hard." "At this rate, you can surely agree to this, right?" He replied, "Move out. I understand. Go prepare." At that time, she thought, finally, it's over. I'll throw myself into my studies. Getting into such a prestigious university wasn't about gaining her family's recognition. It was only about escaping that hellish house. I was so foolish to crave love and attention from people who treated me worse than their pets. Back in the present, she followed the butler to the Duke's room. The surrounding servants whispered as they looked at her, but she just muttered, "I've endured so many looks like these before coming to this world." Arriving at the Duke's room, the butler knocked and announced, "Your Grace, it's me, the head butler. I brought Lady Penelope as requested." From inside, a voice replied, "Enter." The door opened, and she slowly stepped inside. The Duke looked at her and said, "You're here." Looking at the Duke, she was briefly reminded of her previous father, but the thought quickly vanished. Just as she bowed to the Duke, the system presented her with three options. The first was to ask, "Did you call for me for something?" The second was, "If you have something to say, please say it directly." The last was to simply stare without saying anything. I chose the first option. "Did you call for me for something?" The Duke asked, "I heard there was a commotion this morning." The system gave her three more choices. The first was, "It's nothing for you to worry about, Your Grace." The second, "You wanted to cause a commotion too, didn't you?" And lastly, it was all because of that stupid maid. She muttered, looking at these options, "Who would care about a rude, adopted daughter like this?" And when I was playing the game, what was I thinking choosing the second option? She thought, if only Penelope's hair and eye color were the same as his real daughter's, I could at least expect a little sympathy from the Duke. I don't dare choose any of these options. At that moment, the Duke slammed his pen down on the desk with a thud. Fearfully clenching her hands, she thought, "Please, I just need to get through this crucial moment. I hope I won't die." She replied, "It's nothing for you to worry about, Your Grace." The Duke replied, "Penelope, you've been in this family for 6 years now." She thought, 6 years, that's right. Both main characters are 18 years old, and when Penelope was adopted, she was 12. Her eyes widened as she continued to think, wait a minute, the coming-of-age ceremony in this world isn't on their 18th birthday. So, until the real Duchess returns, I don't have much time left. The Duke said, "I don't know if you're aware of this, but entering this house isn't easy. Only those who prove their worth through rigorous testing can pass through the gates of the Eckhart estate. After I took you in, I didn't hesitate to raise you like a true daughter of this house. I even accepted all your frivolous spending. Yet for the past 6 years, I haven't seen any benefit you've brought to the Eckhart family." Penelope thought, just a little bit more. It's gradually. The system gave her three choices. First, to reply, "Are you saying you want to kick me out?" Second, to reply, "I haven't done anything wrong." Finally, to kneel and reply, "I was wrong, Father." Her eyes lit up when she saw the last option. She remembered lying in bed, playing games on her phone. She muttered, "What is this? It has all these special skills. Are all newly released games like this these days? It's amazing. Should I turn it on? But it's already hard enough. I'll turn it on later after I'm done playing." Back in the present, she suddenly knelt down with a thud. The Duke asked in alarm, "What are you doing?" She immediately said, "I was wrong, Father." The Duke exclaimed, "What, Father?" The system displayed a notification, "Hidden mission complete. The forgotten name is Father." Then it gave her a choice. "Do you want to close the selection window?" She thought back to when she was lying in bed playing the game. I ignored this function back then. Returning to the present, she chose close and thought, if my guess is correct, this function. She continued, "Father," then thought, "is the essential condition for my survival in this world." The Duke remained speechless. She thought, all right, now I can speak and act without relying on those choices. Who knew that being able to say what she wanted would be so emotionally moving? She continued, "I apologize for causing a disturbance during this time of remorse. I have acted reprehensibly, failing to display the conduct expected of a noble as an example to the servants. I will strictly reflect on my actions for the remaining time." The Duke only managed to say, "Penelope thought, truthfully, the commotion this morning wasn't my fault. I was the victim. But compared to the villainy I've committed so far, it's not worth mentioning. Playing tough in this situation will only hurt me. If I want to survive, I have to accept this." Clenching her fists, she bowed her head lower and continued, "I have realized the error of my ways. If you forgive me this time, Father, I promise I will strive to prove my worth before the coming-of-age ceremony. Therefore, I beg you to forgive me this time, Father." The Duke was silent for a moment, then replied, "I understand. Don't kneel on the floor anymore. The words of a member of the Eckhart family carry great weight, Penelope. Don't let the opportunity you received today become meaningless." "Yes," she replied. "Thank you, Father." Leaving the room, she muttered, "Phew, that's over." She thought, I don't know if that was the best approach, but it's enough. The Duke isn't someone I need to increase my favorability with anyway. Then she muttered again, "I should be grateful that I'm still alive." As she turned around, a voice rang out, "I told you to stay in your place." She thought, that voice, Looking up, she saw Derek, his favorability rating of 0 flickering above his head. He continued, Emily is a loyal maid who has served the Duke's family for nearly 15 years. He stepped closer to her and added, even with a mountain of money, no maid would want to serve you. Emily was the only one willing to serve you, but today that ends. You caused that chaos yourself, he said, dismissing the last remaining maid. Are you satisfied now? No, Penelope muttered under her breath. When did I do that? The one who caused the chaos was your brother, and the one who almost died from that garbage food was me. She thought, if I keep arguing about this, that my favorability rating will drop even further and I'll be digging my own grave. Should I ask the system for help? She reactivated the system, and the choices appeared as before. 1. Reply, you two seem awfully close. 2. Reply, she made a mistake, so she deserves to be fired. 3. Stare. Penelope muttered, deactivate choices. Off. Derek, seeing her staring, continued, do you dare ignore my words? She turned and said, I apologize for causing a disturbance, young Master Derek. Derek, taken aback, could only utter what Penelope thought, I wonder how many more times I'll have to apologize for things I didn't do. She remembered a time from her childhood, crying and saying, Father, brother, it's her fault I got hurt. I'm sorry, father, brothers, I'm sorry. Back in the present, she continued, just as you said, I haven't known my place lately. I do have some self-respect. I know how pathetic it feels to grovel before others, but I've done it countless times just to survive. Just like now. It was my poor behavior, so you don't need to fire the maid. I've already apologized and asked Father for forgiveness. She thought, even though Penelope truly acted like a villainess, it doesn't feel good. We're the same in that regard. If the path to survival is paved with this kind of humility, from now on, I promise I won't cause you any further trouble. In this fake game world, not reality. Please forgive me this time, young master. I can beg as many times as it takes. Yes, Derek replied. Just this once. I'll only overlook it this one last time. Remember, this is the last time I'll tolerate your arrogance. Yes, of course I understand, Penelope responded. She then stumbled to her feet, thinking, all right, time to go back. Because of that damn maid, I haven't eaten anything all day. I don't have any strength left. Huh? She gasped, collapsing into Derek's arms. He murmured, looking into her emerald eyes, when you ate the spoiled food, shouldn't you have called for a doctor? Her eyes widened, thinking he already knew. Even though it wasn't her fault, he still relentlessly blamed her. If she didn't beg for forgiveness like in a video game, he would clearly resort to violence. She replied, it's not necessary, young master, then stood up and continued, I just promised I wouldn't bother you anymore. So, I apologize for my rudeness. As she walked back to her room, she thought, just leave me alone. I definitely won't cause you any trouble, so you'll never point your sword at me. Therefore, don't bother with me anymore. He suddenly recalled the words, hey, do you know something? She hasn't even called me father once. Isn't that ridiculous? So why does she keep calling us brother all the time? At this moment, Derek turned away, but thankfully, his favorability rating increased by 5%. Back in her room, she collapsed, sighing in relief and murmuring, I'm still alive. In such a chaotic situation, I could even think to call him young master. Staying up all night to master the game formulas wasn't a waste. When the target is Derek, choosing the dialogue option brother guarantees a plummeting favorability rating. He must really hate Penelope to be so disgusted by how she addresses him. She murmured again, because I didn't realize that fact, I died countless times. Who knows what would have happened if I called him that? He's even more difficult than my two older brothers. I absolutely will not call Derek brother again. I need to eat something, but my eyes keep wanting to close. It hasn't even been half a day, and so many things have happened. I don't want to think about anything right now. Returning to Penelope's memory, Reynolds suddenly asked, why is this in your room? Answer me, you little rat. You stole it. Derek, beside him, patted Reynolds' shoulder and said, Reynolds, be careful with your words. She thought, my perspective is so low, and the voice is different too. So this is Penelope's memory. The Duke that day had asked her, answer me, Penelope, why was Yvonne's necklace in your possession? I clearly told you that you were not allowed to enter her room. Father, I told you she's the thief. I didn't do it. I haven't done anything. Don't talk nonsense. How could a gift I gave Yvonne be in your drawer? She yelled, I really don't know. I haven't even seen that necklace before. I've never even stepped foot in that room. A voice rang out. I witnessed Penelope. He continued, for the past few weeks, I've seen Miss Penelope frequently loitering around the third floor. And after checking, I also discovered signs that Miss Yvonne's door had been opened. Penelope shouted, what are you talking about, you old man? She tried to explain, it wasn't me. It really wasn't me. "Father, I didn't enter that room." Then she thought, "It's true, but I was only looking for a place to hide from those hateful maids. I didn't intend to steal anything." The Duke immediately said, "Finno, lock all the rooms on the third floor, especially Yvonne's room." Finno replied, "As you command, Your Grace." He continued, "Tomorrow, invite a jeweler for Penelope." She cried out in despair, "Father, I really... ... And then even you all turn away. While I'm still speaking civilly, you should know your place and get out of here." He shoved her, the pain causing her to cry out. Derek continued his filthy lies. The next day, Penelope, having purchased a large quantity of jewels from the jeweler, was summoned to the mansion. She ignored the servants' shocked cries. She even disregarded her two older brothers' constant criticisms of her lavish lifestyle, which they deemed inappropriate for her low standing. And from that day forward, no one heard Penelope address the Duke as father again. While she was sleeping, she heard a knock at the door. She opened her eyes and asked, "Who is it?" The door swung open with her question. It was the head butler. He said, "Miss, it's the head butler." Penelope thought, "What is it this time?" He continued, "There's an urgent matter that needs to be addressed immediately, so I came to find you." Penelope was instantly awake. "An urgent matter?" she asked, thinking, "Could someone be trying to set a trap for me?" He replied, "It's nothing serious, Mississippi. We need to choose a personal maid for you." She asked a maid. He replied, "Yes, I thought we should decide before dinner, so..." Not letting him finish, Penelope interrupted, "Wait, head butler, what's your name again?" He responded, "Yes." "What is it?" Penelope continued, "I asked for your name." He answered, "It's felony." Mississippi Penelope then asked, "You don't have a last name. So what's my name?" He asked, bewildered, "Miss, why are you suddenly asking this?" She retorted, "Answer me." He replied, "Penelope Eckhart, miss." She replied, "That's right, Penelope Eckhart, a noble. I've never heard of any etiquette that allows a commoner, who doesn't even have a last name, to barge into a noble's bedroom without permission. Does the head butler know of such etiquette? Furthermore, without permission, a strange man dared to enter a young lady's room. If this rumor spreads, I wonder how people will react." He asked, his voice filled with astonishment, "Miss, how could you utter such words?" She replied, "Do I need to list every single detail until my throat is raw for you to understand?" Felony immediately knelt down and said, "I apologize, Mississippi. I was so hasty that I was careless and disrespectful to you. Please forgive me." Penelope replied, "I'm afraid I'll find it very uncomfortable to face you for a while, head butler. If you have anything to report to me in the future, please send someone else." He replied, "But miss, selecting maids for the mansion is my responsibility." Penelope responded coldly, "Yes or no?" He replied, "Yes, I understand, Mississippi." He then added, regarding dinner. Penelope raised her hand and said, "I don't need it. Leave now." He replied, "Yes," and left the room, closing the door. Penelope lay back down on the bed and sighed. Finally, some peace and quiet. "I was harsh with someone older like him," she thought. "But for the past 6 years, I've always been afraid of him, so he probably won't tell the Duke what I said." She paused, then remembered the reputation system in the game, which was influenced by relationships with non-player characters. "It'll probably be fine," she mused. "Just worrying about my favorability rating is exhausting. Who has time to think about that when they're struggling to survive?" Then she chided herself, "Penelope, you fool. When you're angry, you should use your noble status to your advantage. Don't just yell and cause trouble. You're a duchess, after all." The next morning, a knock came at the door. "Knock, knock. Miss, it's the head maid." Penelope replied, "Come in." The maid entered and asked, "Did you sleep well?" Mississippi Penelope thought, "It seems yesterday went smoothly. Now, without my permission, they won't dare open the door on their own." She stood up and asked, "Is something the matter?" The head maid replied, "Due to yesterday's incident, I've come regarding the selection of your personal maid, Mississippi. If you find someone suitable among the candidates, please let me know. If not, I will find someone new." Penelope responded, "There is someone, the maid who used to attend to me." "What was her name again?" The head maid replied, "You're referring to Emily." Mississippi Penelope said, "Ah, yes, Emily. Haven't you dismissed her already?" The head maid replied, "No, miss, I haven't." However, Penelope asked, "Then what did you do?" The head maid replied, "For her misconduct while attending to you, miss, I docked 3 months of her wages and assigned her to laundry duty." "But why do you ask about her?" Mississippi Penelope thought. As expected, she looks like she knows something. Penelope continued, "I want Emily to continue as my personal maid." The head maid replied, but Mississippi Penelope said, "It's truly inconvenient. If I don't have anyone attending to me right now, I'll have to waste time finding someone new and then wait until they're no longer nervous. Wouldn't it be better to have someone who's already experienced? If you understand, please relay this to her. I'm counting on you." the head maid replied, but the two young masters personally punished her for her disrespect towards you, miss. Penelope replied, can it be done? I said it would be inconvenient, so I asked you to bring her here. Just do as I say. The head maid replied, if that's what you wish, miss, I will first consult with the Duke. Penelope thought until the very end. Not a single person will listen to Penelope, not even once. This wouldn't happen under normal circumstances. Yvonne's words, they listened to the real lady without question. Do they want me to play the villain and go crazy, throwing things around? Do they want me to act like the previous Penelope? She replied, no need. I will personally go see father right now. The head maid asked. Mississippi Penelope replied, it's the same either way. I'll explain everything that happened yesterday myself and ask father to forgive Emily. There's no problem with that, right? Penelope thought, after all, Emily wasn't the mastermind, nor was she the only one who ostracized the Duchess. However, if the truth about this renowned head maid condoning the mistreatment of the Duchess is revealed, I wonder how much chaos it will cause. She asked, where's father? The head maid replied, the Duke went to the Imperial Palace early this morning. Mississippi Penelope replied, is that so? When will he return? The head maid replied, I'll bring Emily right away, Mississippi. I'm old and tend to overthink. I sincerely apologize for not understanding your generous and forgiving heart. Mississippi Penelope thought, the reputation system is a mess. She replied, I hope this won't happen again, head maid. Then she thought, up until now, there's been nothing to make anyone fear Penelope. In any situation, as long as they blame everything on Penelope's vicious and haughty nature, everything is settled. But I don't want to die like that. She then said, you may leave. At that moment, Emily brought Penelope's breakfast, trembling with fear, and said, Miss, breakfast is ready. A truly steaming plate of food. Penelope picked up her knife and fork and began cutting the meat coldly. Calmly, she turned and called, Emily. Emily flinched and replied, why yes. Mississippi Penelope ordered, bring me a needle. Emily, puzzled, started to ask, yes, is something. But before she could finish, Penelope continued, the needle you prick me with every morning. Emily's eyes widened. She gasped, huh, and fell to her knees. Dot kept apologizing. My lady, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Penelope replied, didn't you hear me? Don't make me say it twice. Emily continued to stammer, my lady. Penelope snapped, give it here. Emily trembled, pulling a large needle from her hair and offering it to Penelope. H here, my lady. Penelope took the needle. You hit it well, she observed, then thought to herself, how much pain must she have caused me? So many mornings I've woken up with my arm, feeling like it's been ripped apart. But she had never told anyone. Watch closely, Emily, Penelope instructed. Emily looked up, confused. Yes, my lady. Penelope stabbed her own hand with the needle. Emily gasped in horror. My lady, why would you do that? Penelope responded, don't cry, Emily. These are wounds you inflicted. Emily stammered, but how? Penelope continued, right now it's only 2 marks, but later there could be 3 or 4 or even 5. Emily trembled uncontrollably at her words. Penelope, showing no mercy, continued, from now on, I won't question your service. I'll accept everything. The hand-washing water, my clothes, my food, everything. And who knows? Maybe the more I do, the more wounds will appear, and someone might notice. Something strange. Emily continued to tremble, whispering, my lady. Penelope pressed on. They'll wonder who is insolent enough to mistreat the lady of the Eckhart household, and they'll search for the culprit. Someone like Derek, for instance. She lifted Emily's chin. Emily, she said, it all depends on how you behave from now on. Now get up. I've finished my meal. It's your turn to work, isn't it? Emily immediately began clearing the table. Penelope watched Emily and thought, good, she's obedient. I can still use her if I need to. Then she continued her internal monologue. Changing a servant's attitude won't accomplish much anyway. It's better to make her a useful tool. Her weaknesses are her past mistreatment of me and her spineless, self-serving nature. I'm quite satisfied with those weaknesses. Suddenly, a crash. It was Derek, his favorability at -3%, storming towards her. What do you think you're doing? He demanded. He glared at Penelope, then at Emily. Emily, terrified, stammered, young master. Young master. Penelope quickly tossed aside the fork she still held, fearing Derek might stab her with it. All right, that's enough. Get out, Emily, she ordered. Derek countered, who said she could leave. Penelope insisted, go on. Emily fled the room, seeking refuge. Penelope and Derek were left alone. Explain yourself. What are you planning? Derek demanded. Penelope thought, negative favorability bastard. No. What did you say? Derek pressed. Are you ignoring me now? He raged me. I'm asking why you're keeping her around. Derek Eckhart, 2 years my senior. Penelope thought, so that's why they fight every day. Their age gap is just like mine and my brother's. Who do you think you are? If you're so unhappy, then get out. While I'm still being civil, get out of this house. She thought, no matter what choices popped up, it wouldn't make any difference. It wasn't a proper conversation anyway. She replied, it's nothing, Derek. Don't worry about it. He looked stunned. Nothing. You serve the master burnt food, and you say it's nothing. She responded, no, I mean. He yelled, you lowly thing. You don't know your place. How dare you mock the Duchess? She muttered, lowly thing. Doesn't know her place. He continued, we don't need someone so disrespectful. Plenty of people want to work here, and we don't have to pay them a cent. She thought, I feel like I've heard this somewhere before. It dawned on her that these were the same words Derek said whenever he saw Penelope acting normally. Renan, hands on his hips, frowned and asked his father, are you laughing? What was that maid thinking, doing that to Penelope? Penelope frowned, thinking, everyone in this house treats me like a fool. She told him, I already spoke to father about this yesterday, so it's not necessary. Renan, acting as if he knew everything, said smugly, of course you did. I told father to get rid of that insolent girl immediately. So, Penelope interrupted her father and brother. Derek doesn't want to dismiss Emily. He paused, asking what? Father, and you? Her face remained expressionless. She thought they didn't give a specific reason. Derek only said that Emily has worked here for a long time, which makes me feel pressured. Well, it's not a lie. If they ask, I'll just say I thought that's what they wanted. He asked again, so that's why you're keeping her as your personal maid instead of firing her. She answered firmly, yes, that's right. He gritted his teeth in anger. Renan snapped at her. You should have said no. She questioned, what difference would it make? He yelled, what do you mean? Renan roared, do you want to die from poisoning or something? She asked him back, are you sure a new maid wouldn't do the same? Renan, mid-rant, stopped short at Penelope's words. She thought, calm down. I can't argue back by saying they're the reason I'm treated this way. It would only hurt Renan's pride. Thinking about the family and looking at Renan's current -3 favorability rating towards her, she thought, it went up a little, but it's still negative. If it drops again, I'll definitely die. She told him, I didn't go to father yesterday to fire her. He asked in surprise, oh, then why? She replied, I knelt and apologized for causing a disturbance with my carelessness. He asked again, surprised, knelt. You begged for forgiveness. Wait, why did father tell you to do that? But her face remained impassive. She said, I told him I'd be more careful and not cause any more trouble. Having been barefoot on the floor this whole time, she continued, so let's just forget about this incident. Inwardly, she thought, if you stay quiet, my chances of survival will increase dramatically. So please, don't pick a fight with me. Having said that, she turned to leave, telling him please. Renan just stood there, dumbfounded. He suddenly gritted his teeth, his brow furrowed in anger. He yelled, don't you have any self-respect? This made Penelope stop. She paused to hear him yell. You're just going to let this go, even after being treated like that? Are you crazy? You should be yelling and throwing things like you usually do. That's more like you. She said sarcastically, why didn't you think this would happen when you left that child's necklace in my room? She grimaced, inducing vomiting, and asked what was going on. Penelope recalled the moment she was forced to vomit and blame, sitting on the floor while he still didn't seem to care, thinking he was worse than the head butler felony. Or maybe Emily, the true culprit, was right here. His hands clenched, trembling, as he spoke about Penelope lobbying for that. She continued, I wasn't planning on talking about that right now. After all this, I'd rather play dumb. Renan lowered his head, his face crumpled with guilt. She continued, but I'm tired of everything. He asked, tired. Penelope turned her head and continued, at the upcoming coming-of-age ceremony, I'll become an adult. She added, I can't stay at the Eckhart estate forever. He just stared at her blankly. Renan hesitantly asked, what are you saying? Do you mean you're leaving? She replied, it all depends on father and Derek. She thought to herself, I don't know what will happen either. I don't know if I can return to my world when I reach an ending with one of the 5 goals, or even if I'll survive until then. But don't worry, I'll never target you, Renan. She said to him, so you don't need to worry about me, Renan. She turned her head and told him, it's time for your bath. Can you leave? Suddenly, her eyes widened in surprise, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Renan's charming face now held a mixture of emotions. She stared at him in surprise, thinking, what is this? I've never seen him with this expression in the game. Seeing his favorability rating flickering, she thought with a start, his favorability rating will drop, right? I've been so careful. No way. His favorability rating has increased to 3%. She stared at the favorability rating, bewildered. It increased by 3%. Suddenly, Renan said, even if just for a moment, I feel like a fool for bothering someone like you. With that, he turned and left. Penelope stared blankly after him, muttering, I thought he was the most hopeless one. She turned away, thinking, I knew it was a good idea to turn off those options. It's like walking on thin ice. But I hope things continue like this. She suddenly stopped. She thought, I can't call him a jerk anymore. Penelope asked, what about the invitation from the Imperial Palace? Emily clutched the letter in her hand nervously and said, Yes, Mississippi. It's for the second prince's birthday party. She handed the letter to Penelope. Here's the invitation, Miss, Emily continued. It's for tomorrow. The young master told you to prepare quickly. Penelope asked in surprise, Young master. You mean Derek said that? She thought, since Derek said so, it means I'm no longer grounded. Penelope read the letter and said, I should get ready quickly. Inwardly, she thought, I just want to stay in my room and be waited on. I don't want to get involved with any of the male leads. That would be perfect. She suddenly froze. Wait, I'm going to the Imperial Palace. She panicked. That means I'll meet the Crown Prince. She fearfully thought, no, that's for sure. This is the second prince's birthday, so this will also be the Crown Prince's debut. Penelope recalled the time she played the game. She always died by the Crown Prince's sword. She shivered. She cried out, no. Emily stammered, asking, Miss. Penelope anxiously asked Emily, will father be accompanying us tomorrow? Emily replied, yes, he has business tomorrow. Young Master Derek will personally escort Mississippi. Hearing that, she crushed the invitation. Tears flowed like a river. I'm in big trouble. Emily saw Penelope's gloomy face. Emily hesitantly asked, Miss, are you all right? Your face looks pale. Penelope, with a face like a funeral procession, said, I have to think about something. Could you go out for a bit? She waited until Emily had closed the door behind her. She lamented, what should I do? Penelope lay sprawled on the sofa, one hand on her forehead, the other dangling, holding the troublesome invitation. If I feign illness, I'll have to pretend in front of Derek. His Halgandu will definitely decrease, considering his personality. If it were causing vomiting, it would be different. She remembered she had played up to the 76th time, still couldn't get past the Crown Prince stage. I don't remember the events concerning the Crown Prince, because I kept dying. Right after arriving at the palace, I died when I was alone with him. Right after starting to talk, kept dying and kept replaying. She quickly sat up, her head aching. If I go, I'll die. If I don't go, I'll also die. What kind of cursed game is this? As I thought, should I try my best to feign illness so I don't have to go? Penelope suddenly exclaimed, as if she had just thought of something. Should I try dying? Maybe I'll be able to return to the real world if I die here. Is this method faster than approaching that hopeless brat? She wondered. She remembered. Moreover, this game has a replay button. Replay. That's the ultimate lifesaver. It automatically appears in hard mode when I'm about to die, and it resets the game to the beginning. Since the dialogue choices have already appeared, why hasn't the replay button shown up? She resolutely decided, all right, I have nothing left to lose. I'll go meet the Crown Prince and try dying. Now she was being prepared to go to the Imperial Palace. From bathing to applying a face mask, everything was attentively taken care of by the maids. Everyone seemed very eager, bringing her various dresses and jewelry to choose from. They chirped, Miss, how about this dress? This is a new dress you've never worn before. How about these earrings? I think they'll match the dress. They chattered amongst themselves. I think a half updo would be prettier than a ponytail. How should we do her makeup? This puzzled Penelope. Are these really the same people who ignored me before? She glanced at the maids bustling about, thinking they were even more excited than she was. Recently, I've asserted my position, but they've changed their tune so quickly. She suddenly looked at her reflection in the mirror. She sighed, thinking, Father, I think it would be quite interesting to get ready with this face. She then ordered, bring the dark dress that will cover up to my neck. Minimize the jewelry and don't overdo it. Her words astonished all the maids. They cried out, In confusion, they stammered, but Miss, it's the Imperial banquet. Penelope interrupted. No need to try so hard to dress me up. Just do as I say. All three left with gloomy faces, dejected and disappointed. Penelope thought, I know how excited you are, but I'm not going to the banquet to show off my beauty today. Today, Penelope wore a long, dark blue dress that reached her heels. The maids, filled with disappointment, looked at her. This is the best we could do with Lady Penelope's wardrobe, one said. Penelope, not entirely satisfied but finding it passable, responded, it's fine. She dismissed everyone except Emily, much to their dismay. Looking at her hands, Penelope said, Emily, could you bring me a pair of long gloves that match this dress? Emily hesitated. My lady, you'll wear gloves. It's already beautiful as it is. Penelope replied, of course. Emily gasped, though. Emily quickly obeyed. Penelope clicked her tongue, thinking that she had been treating Emily too well lately, and now the maid thought she was favored. She needed to disappoint her occasionally. Derek was already waiting outside. He looked at her and said, "It seems your confinement has helped you mature quite a bit." Annoyed, Penelope thought the first thing he says after days of not seeing me is sarcasm. She curtsied, thinking whatever, it doesn't matter. Seeing Derek's favorability rating at 5%, she wondered when it had increased. I haven't even seen him. Did it increase because he hasn't seen me? Oh my God, so he hates seeing my face. If I'd known, I would have pretended to be too ill to go, she thought irritably. She turned. Whatever, I'll just get in the carriage. But Derek suddenly stopped. She got in and instructed the driver to leave. Seeing him still standing there, hand outstretched, Penelope was confused. Why isn't he getting in his own carriage? Suddenly, Derek glared at her. He climbed into her carriage, startling her. Seeing him settled across from her, she thought awkwardly, "Are we going to the palace together?" Penelope asked, surprised, "Are we riding together?" Derek questioned, "Do you have a problem with that?" She stammered, and no, not really. But inwardly, she panicked. Why? He wasn't like this in the game. With a sullen expression, he said, "If you don't like it, you can take another carriage." She sighed deeply. Penelope, speaking hesitantly and glancing cautiously at him as if wary, said, "I don't dislike it. It's just, I'm surprised because..." Derek listened without any change in expression. After staring at her for a moment, he looked away. She glanced at his head. Derek's favorability rating had now increased to 6%. She was astonished, unable to believe her eyes. "It's fine. What could possibly happen sharing a carriage once?" Penelope reassured herself, but after a while, they remained silent, not speaking to each other. Penelope was screaming internally, "I'm suffocating. Help me. We're here." Hearing the coachman's words, she was so relieved she could cry. "I finally made it out of the carriage alive. Thank goodness for the speed-up spell," she thought. "Let's hurry to the entrance." But Derek had already stood and exited. He extended his hand and said coldly, "Your hand." Penelope was stunned. "He's escorting me." She recalled Derek's surprised look when she'd boarded the carriage first. Come to think of it, when we were about to get in, Derek saw I wasn't getting out and asked, "What are you doing? Aren't you getting out?" She suddenly snapped back to reality. Today, Penelope placed her hand on Derek's, thanking him. The heir of Duke Edward, Derek Eckhart, and Lady Penelope Eckhart had arrived. Before they could even step inside, he quickly warned her not to act rashly. Derek continued his threats. "Don't forget your confinement only ended yesterday. It wasn't just confinement to your room. If you cause any more chaos..." She lowered her head obediently and replied, "Yes, I'll be careful." Seeing him turn away, she thought, just as I thought. Derek seems very popular. Everyone was excitedly greeting him. "It's been a while, young Master Eckhart. How is the Duke?" Noble ladies also gathered, chatting animatedly during the tea party. "I told you about what happened last time." "Oh my, really?" Penelope stood in a corner, glancing at everyone around her, thinking, "It seems like no one will come to me. I must have generated quite a few rumors." She closed her eyes and continued her thoughts. "Although I don't look lonely, I came here today with a purpose. And if it works, I can go home." Seeing Penelope, everyone stepped back, whispering, "It's that crazy bitch. She seems quiet today. She almost bit him if you touched her." Penelope pretended to be calm in the face of the gossip, but inside she was screaming, "When will that damn crown prince arrive?" But suddenly, she heard, "The esteemed empress and the noble second prince have arrived." Everyone present bowed their heads respectfully. Penelope tried to glance up. There, the empress and the second prince were majestically walking in together. A murmur erupted from the crowd. "Look at their golden hair. It's incredible. That hair symbolizes the royal family." Penelope was startled. Seeing the empress and second prince seated on the two thrones, she was confused. Wasn't the emperor's empty throne Callisto's? Not the second prince's. She felt bewildered. The one who always occupies the emperor's throne on formal occasions, the one who doesn't appear in the game, that was always the crown prince's seat. Why is it the second prince now? The second prince announced, "Rise. Thank you all for coming to this birthday banquet despite your busy schedules. It's nothing grand, but I hope everyone has a pleasant time." He cheerfully added, "Well then, shall we begin the banquet?" Suddenly, the doors burst open, startling Penelope. Turning to look, she saw all the guests whispering again. "What was that? What's that sound?" At the entrance, a figure walked in. Everyone gasped that. It said it's the crown prince. Hearing this, Penelope was stunned. "Callisto." She froze, her face lighting up. The Empress and Second Prince seemed slightly apprehensive at Callisto's appearance. Penelope was still lost in thought. Whoever said the Empress and Second Prince's hair was golden was just being insulting. She thought because this Empire's crown prince that his hair is truly golden, as if it were spun from gold itself. Everyone at the banquet cried out in alarm. Look at the floor. What is that? Is that blood in his hand? Isn't that a person? Thud Crown Prince Callisto dragged a man who looked nearly lifeless by the hair to the Second Prince, glaring at him murderously. Happy birthday, he said. Little brother. Callisto tossed the man casually to the floor. The Empress and the Second Prince were utterly astonished, their eyes wide. The Second Prince stammered, "Be brother." Callisto. Crown Prince Callisto shrugged nonchalantly. What do you mean, not invited? I rushed here, leaving behind urgent political matters because I was invited. However, the one who delivered the invitation was somewhat inexperienced. Hearing this, the Empress's face lost all traces of its initial gentle serenity. Callisto continued. He refused to give me the invitation and tried to cause further trouble. So I punish him a little. You should choose more competent subordinates, little brother. A smile played on Callisto's lips. His expression relaxed. However, his hand, lightning fast, stabbed into the man he had dragged in, a subordinate of his younger brother, the Second Prince. Everyone present gasped and cried out in horror, but Penelope was so shocked she froze, asking herself, What is going on? Not only the onlookers, but even the Second Prince was terrified by the scene. Callisto finally spoke. If you want another gift like this, I'd be happy to send one anytime. Under the horrified gazes of the assembled nobles, Callisto turned and left. Murmurs erupted around the room, but Penelope remained stunned, unable to comprehend the events. What was that? My death flags are definitely in the game, but this scene wasn't. The system announced Callisto, who has a hostile relationship with the Second Prince, left the party after causing a minor disturbance due to his foul mood. Penelope, reading this, thought a minor disturbance. How is that a minor disturbance? She continued to question herself. Why are they in conflict? Is it because the two princes have different mothers? The system presented Penelope with a choice. A new chapter has begun. The crown prince of ruthlessness and bloodshed, Callisto Regulus, is heading towards the maze garden. The choices were yes or no. Penelope thought Callisto's part has finally arrived. But that bastard is crazier than I thought. What if he chops my head off the moment we meet? Immediately, Penelope countered her own thoughts. No, I came here to die anyway. If I get through this, I might be able to go home. And I have save points. I'll just reload if something bad happens. Thinking this, Penelope chose yes. Just like that, she was transported to the maze garden. Upon arriving, Penelope muttered to herself, I really did teleport like in the game. That means I'll never get lost. Her eyes filled with determination. She thought, all right, let's go die. Penelope set off, unaware of how far she would have to go. She wondered how much further she had to go. Her heels were killing her. Just then, she saw a light ahead. Penelope gasped and thought, that must be where I'm supposed to go. With that thought, she headed towards the light. There, she found a fountain but no one in sight. She looked around anxiously. Where am I supposed to meet him? She muttered. As she turned, a sword suddenly pressed against her throat. Penelope gasped in shock and fear. Along with the sword came a voice. I was wondering what rat was scurrying around here. Hearing the voice, Penelope looked up. Callisto turned and saw her face. He sneered you. The mad dog of the Eckhart family. The sword in his hand pressed harder against her throat. Penelope remained silent, her eyes wide with fear. Hearing him, she thought of the party. After seeing what happened there, his eyes were now filled with murderous intent. His expression couldn't have been more hostile, his voice dripping with malice. You must want to die, he hissed. Penelope let out a small gasp, but still said nothing. Callisto, not getting the response he wanted, pressed further. Tell me, why were you sneaking around like a rat? The sharp sword tore the fabric of Penelope's dress. In other words, the blade was now dangerously close to her skin. Hearing the rip, Penelope panicked, thinking, I'm going to die. If I stay like this, the crown prince will kill me. Then, she suddenly remembered the reset button. Even if I die, she thought, I need to know where the reset is. Crown Prince Callisto continued to stare at her. Penelope frantically searched for the reset button. Where is it? It's not here. It should be appearing by now. Callisto, receiving no answer, spoke again. Since you won't answer, this is where you say goodbye to your family. I'll be sure to relay your last words to Duke Edward. Despite the Crown Prince's threat, Penelope continued to frantically search for the reset button. She desperately willed it to appear. Callisto said he would relay Penelope's last words to the Eckhart house. The reset button didn't appear. Callisto's sword flicked. He asked, "Now it seems you want to talk." She nodded, saying she would speak. The sword grazed her collarbone. Callisto told her to try and tell him. Penelope stammered. She didn't know what to say. Could she really say she came looking for Callisto to die? Penelope clenched her fists. Without the reset button, she couldn't die as planned. She wondered if she should turn on the selection feature, but it was by turning it off that she had survived this long. Callisto said that from here, he could hear Penelope's thoughts. He was eager to hear what she had to say. Callisto's favorability rating was 0%. He continued to speak, saying he hoped she would say something reasonable, as he hated being interrupted. The sword grazed Penelope's collar again. Panicked and unsure what to say, she finally blurted out, "I like you, Callisto." Callisto paused. Penelope continued to explain, "I like the Crown Prince. That's why I followed you." She said she thought Callisto would be upset about the commotion earlier, so she came to comfort him. Penelope froze, wondering what strange words were coming out of her mouth. How on earth could she comfort Callisto after he'd dragged the assassin's name through the mud like that? Even if it wasn't Yvonne, the standard dialogue options would still say something similar. And yet, those were the words she spoke. A madman like Callisto. If she ever got back, she'd give this crazy game a terrible review. Penelope trembled. She snuck a glance at Callisto, amazed. This was an unexpected excuse. He and Penelope had never even properly met. Callisto thought the closest they'd come was briefly passing each other at the celebratory banquet held upon his return. Penelope immediately replied that she liked Callisto at first sight. Callisto asked her what she liked about him. Flustered and sweating, Penelope finally said she liked his striking appearance. Callisto asked if his only charm was his looks. Penelope continued, saying she liked Callisto because he was brave and valiant and skilled with a sword. He replied that those were cliches. Were there no other reasons she liked him? Penelope was sweating and trembling. Callisto said fine. Although he wasn't satisfied with her answers, he would spare her this time, on the condition that the next time they met, Penelope would clearly explain why and how she liked him. Callisto told her she could leave. Blink. Callisto's favorability rating increased by 2%. Penelope remained where she was. Callisto asked what she was still doing there. Did she want to play with his sword some more? Penelope said no and ran. There was no reset button. It should have appeared, but it hadn't. Penelope kept thinking that if she died, she could return to her original world. But what if she really died? She ran breathlessly. It couldn't be. What would she do if she couldn't return to her old world, where she was an ordinary student? Penelope wondered if there was no other way but to accept this ending. What should she do? Even if she painstakingly raised his favorability, it would plummet in an instant. Penelope started to cry. Why did she have to die to please strangers in this world? Someone bumped into her. Penelope stumbled, wiping her tears and apologizing. She thought she had to run before the Crown Prince came looking for her. The person took Penelope's hand. As Penelope was frantically running away, she encountered another capture target. He was a mage, also Marquis Vinter. Not only did he not laugh at her disheveled appearance, but he kindly asked if she was all right. After regaining her composure, she felt the warmth of the hand on hers. She quickly pulled her hand back and wiped the remaining tears from her face. Now she was certain Callisto wasn't chasing her. She quickly stood up, apologizing for her embarrassing behavior to this new acquaintance, hoping he hadn't seen anything. She was about to leave when he stopped her. She was not only bleeding, but her face was also pale. Vinna wanted to take her to a doctor, but Penelope seemed unconcerned. She just wanted to quickly leave this troublesome place. Seeing her stubbornness, Vinna didn't force the issue any further and handed her a handkerchief to bind her bleeding wound. The man gently wiped away the remaining tears from the corners of her eyes. She spoke softly. In return, I hope that when we meet again, the sadness hidden deep within these beautiful eyes will be gone. She looked at him blankly. The favorability rating above his head increased. Cut to another scene. After she found the eldest young master, her body couldn't hold on any longer and she collapsed. Looking at the man running quickly towards her, her vision became increasingly blurred. In her dream, She vaguely heard the maid's calls of miss and the urgent voice saying, "Quickly call the doctor." In that gray world, Penelope recalled her terrible past. She clearly only wanted to live peacefully, but was constantly dragged into unnecessary trouble by those around her. In that dream, there was a girl beaten until she had no strength to fight back. The bullies standing around her discussed whether they would get in trouble when her brother found out they had hit her. Another one of them spoke up in denial. "Don't you know? Her brother hates her." Then they mocked her, saying she was just trash, not on the same level as them. After returning home, she quietly greeted her family and was about to go up to her room when her brother, seeing the wounds on her body, asked her who had hit her. She just indifferently said, "It's nothing, I just fell." But her brother didn't accept this answer and stubbornly continued to probe. He continued to question her, but at this point, she couldn't bear it anymore and finally exploded. She yelled, "I said it's nothing. It's nothing. Please. Since when have you all cared about me so much? Leave me alone. Have I ever asked for anything from this house? I've accepted staying here, but why do you all keep?" At this point, she couldn't hold back anymore and collapsed to the ground, sobbing loudly. Cut to another scene. It's when her brother returned after taking revenge for her. He said, "I found all those bastards involved and beat them to a pulp. You're so weak and pathetic to let those bastards hit you like that." He also affirmed that this won't happen a second time. The girl just stood in a corner, smiling and thanking her brother, but deep down, she resented it. Why should she be grateful to them? They were just cleaning up their own mess. Outside, her brother was scolding the servants. "If anything happens, not only you but that crown prince too." Before he could finish his sentence, Penelope, finding it too noisy, muttered, "Be quiet." Hearing her voice, he turned around and asked, "Hey, you're awake." While she was immersed in the painful memories of the past, a familiar figure vaguely appeared in her vision. Without even guessing, she knew it was her wretched second prince, Renan. She mumbled, "I hate you." Penelope unconsciously said that she hated Renan. That extremely hate. Then her eyes closed. When she woke up, it was already morning and the birds were chirping. The maid, Emily, asked, "Is Miss feeling better now?" Penelope said that she was feeling better. Emily brightened considerably. She had been very worried about Penelope for 4 days. The Duke and the 2 young masters were also very worried. Penelope asked, "Is that so?" Emily immediately replied, "Of course, Mississippi." The eldest young master's face turned pale. "He carried you while running." Penelope murmured, wondering what the commotion was about. Emily informed her that the Duke had urgently summoned all the royal physicians in the capital. Head Butler Felony was also struggling. He desperately tried to prevent the 2 young masters from entering the imperial palace. Penelope thought to herself, surprised that everyone was overreacting. She hadn't expected such a reaction from her family. She wondered what had happened while she was unconscious. Emily added that it was the first time she had seen Penelope so ill. She had been anxious, unsure of what had transpired. Penelope told Emily that she had worked hard. Emily immediately replied, "It wasn't any trouble, Mississippi. I've been serving you for years, after all." Then, she said she would inform the Duke that Penelope had awakened. Penelope agreed and asked Emily to bring her some melon sherbet when she returned. Lying back down, Penelope touched her neck. Why was it wrapped in so many bandages? At first glance, anyone would think she had broken her neck, but it wasn't so bad. She thought she would pretend to be ill for a while. Knock, knock. Head Butler Felony knocked on her door. "Miss, it's Felony." Penelope instructed Emily to see what the butler wanted. After inquiring, Emily peeked back in and said that the Duke had summoned Penelope. Penelope turned, asking, "Father." She guessed that Felony had come personally because when the head of the house gives an order, the butler can't send someone else. Penelope wondered what the Duke would say this time. She knew she had caused a disturbance at the imperial palace, but she had just recovered from an illness. This was truly the fate of an adopted daughter. Felony told Penelope, "Let's go." Mississippi Penelope immediately asked, "Don't you usually walk in front of me?" He lowered his head, saying he was merely a servant and couldn't dare walk ahead of his master. Penelope responded with, "Huh, is this a new attitude?" Felony continued, "Please, miss, after you." Walking through the hall, the servants bowed in unison with pleasant expressions. They all inquired about her health and whether she was feeling better. Penelope thought to herself how strangely they were acting. Felony knocked on the door. "Duke, Miss Penelope has arrived." He opened the door, bowed, and invited Penelope inside. Penelope was still suspicious. Had the butler really attended etiquette training while she was out? The Duke said gently, "You've arrived. Please sit down." Then he continued, explaining the reason he had called for her. But before he could finish, Penelope spoke first. Kneeling, she said, "I apologize, Duke. I was wrong. Although she was supposed to be reflecting, she had disrupted the royal banquet and tarnished the family's reputation. Penelope said she didn't dare ask for forgiveness. She understood the gravity of her mistakes and would accept any punishment. The Duke said, "Stop. Stand up. An Eckhart does not kneel under any circumstances. You must not demean yourself like that, Penelope. As an Eckhart, no one can force you to kneel, not even royalty." The Duke told her that if she understood, she should stand up. So Penelope wondered what she had done wrong. Was he really that easily agitated? The Duke lowered his head slightly. He said he hadn't called her in to blame her. Penelope paused and asked, "Yes. Then why did you call me?" The Duke said he just wanted the details of what happened to the royal palace. He told her to tell him what exactly happened between her and the crown prince. Penelope recalled the events of that day. She said that she had been taking a walk and got lost when she ran into the crown prince, but perhaps because he was in a bad mood that day. The Duke asked, "Just because he was in a bad mood, he tried to slit your throat, Penelope?" Penelope quickly explained that the crown prince had no intention of slitting her throat. The Duke started to get angry. If not, then he must be insane to dare point a sword at a duchess for such an absurd reason. Penelope also said that the crown prince acted that way because of something she did. The Duke turned and asked if her injury was serious. She replied that thankfully it wasn't too bad. The Duke said, "That's good." Penelope's eyes widened and she responded, "Yes." The Duke said that they could use this incident as leverage against the crown prince, and that Penelope was a valuable member of the Eckhart family. They had to put him in his place. The Duke said that ever since Callisto had been praised as a hero, he hadn't respected anyone. Penelope said anxiously, "Father, what if someone hears us?" The Duke asked if she knew that the Eckhart family had always remained neutral. She replied, "Of course I know. Even the legitimate heir would struggle to survive without the Empress's support. Since the Empress's death, the forces supporting the crown prince that had dwindled. While the crown prince was at war, the second prince's mother, the current empress, had seized control of the palace. So it was still uncertain who would ascend the throne. Penelope hadn't realized Callisto's situation was so complicated. Since she only dated him in normal mode, she didn't have much information. She could understand why. Thought the second prince had sent assassins after him. The commotion at the palace must have had a reason. The Duke continued, "Given this increasingly chaotic situation, it's difficult for us to maintain our neutrality. So this incident will be a useful card for us." The Duke coughed and then asked Penelope, as a reward for this unexpected outcome, "Is there anything you particularly want?" Penelope asked in surprise, a reward. She had thought he'd called her in to scold her. The Duke continued, asking if she needed him to call a jeweler. It was the changing of the seasons, and it was time for new clothes. He told her to throw away all her old dresses. Penelope thought to herself, he's being incredibly generous. She said she would let him know after thinking it over. Penelope stood up, closed the door, and left the Duke's study. The system showed that her reputation score had increased by 5 points after improving her relationship with the Duke. But Penelope still found it strange. Did the crown prince incident really carry that much weight? She hadn't done anything. But, well, whether it was favorability or reputation, bonus points were always good. Emily met Penelope and asked if she had returned. She told Penelope that when she fainted, there was a white, floral handkerchief on her neck. The young master told Emily to throw it away, but just in case, she washed it and kept it. Penelope remembered that this was the handkerchief Vinterbrandandi had given her that day. She had completely forgotten about it. Penelope thanked Emily for her thoughtfulness. Emily also thanked Penelope. Penelope turned and asked why. Emily just said it was nothing. Penelope turned back, thinking Emily was a strange girl. She thought she should return the favor to Vinter, whatever his last name was. After all, he was one of her targets, so they were sure to meet again. Penelope asked Emily if she could tell the butler tomorrow to call a jeweler. Emily asked, "A jeweler, Mississippi. Do you want to order jewelry for the festival?" Penelope asked, "Festival?" Emily continued, "Next week is National Day." She said she heard that this year's celebration would be bigger than usual, especially to celebrate the crown prince's victory. Then, Emily covered her mouth with her hand. Penelope told her not to mention the crown prince again. She ordered Emily to go and tell the butler immediately. Emily obeyed, saying she would do it right away. Penelope put her hand to her face, thinking. She pulled open a drawer, remembering that she might meet her capture targets at in-game events. Like the first time she met Renan and Derek at the mansion, then Callisto and Vinter at the palace. Now there was only one target left, The night, Icles. She tried to remember what Penelope did at the festival in the game. At that time, she was only focused on the brothers, so she skipped the festival event. She slammed her hand on the table in frustration. She was too busy during that part to participate. She had never encountered Icles from Penelope's perspective on hard mode. Even on normal mode, her knowledge of him was limited to the event where he was brought back by the Duke. However, she was certain this event would take place at the festival. She had to find him and bring him back before the Duke. After the Callisto incident, she had confirmed one thing. If she couldn't die, she needed to achieve the ending as soon as possible to escape this wretched place. And to do that, she needed to focus all her efforts on building favorability with the easiest target to capture, Icles. Penelope went for a walk. She thought there had to be a hole somewhere in the garden. She had to find it, in case she needed to escape the festival. But the Duke's estate was vast, so finding the hole wouldn't be easy. She told Emily to bring some refreshments. Penelope sat down under a tree. She flipped through the pages of a book, then asked Emily to bring her a bookmark. Not hearing Emily's reply, she looked up and saw Derek. He asked if Penelope was feeling better. He was holding her refreshments. The leaves rustled. She saw Derek's favorability rating increase from 6% to 8%. Penelope started to get up, but Derek told her she didn't need to. She said it was all right. She was just about to go inside. Derek asked if she didn't need the tea and refreshments then. Penelope asked if Emily had asked Derek to bring them out. He said no. He had something he wanted to talk to her about anyway. She wondered what she and Derek could possibly have to discuss. Then she asked if he was going to talk to her about what happened at the palace. Penelope apologized to Derek, saying she must have caused him a lot of trouble, especially since he'd reminded her so much. She offered to accept any punishment. Derek replied, but he hadn't meant to bring that up. Penelope glanced at him and asked, if not that, then what? He asked her why she called him young master. Surprised, she replied yes. Derek looked away, as if searching for something, then said it was nothing. He was just thinking aloud. He explained he came to give her a handkerchief, a pink one. Surprised, she asked, "This is a handkerchief." The sound of rustling leaves filled the air. Derek continued, saying she couldn't go around with a bandage on her neck like that. Even though Penelope's reputation was already rock bottom, she still couldn't keep a strange man's personal belongings. Penelope's eyes widened. Was Derek implying she accepted the handkerchief from Vinter? Was that why he told Emily to throw it away, even though she had carefully kept it in her drawer? Penelope wondered how Derek knew it was a handkerchief she received from a man. She thought he would taunt her. Unexpectedly, Derek seemed concerned. Penelope thanked him, then took the handkerchief from him. She thought it looked expensive, the fabric soft. Even though it wasn't wrapped in a ribbon or in a box, it was still a gift. She told Derek she would treasure it. Derek's heart skipped a beat. Penelope panicked internally. What was that expression just now? His favorability rating flickered continuously. Derek turned and said he had to leave urgently. Penelope was still puzzled. What was his problem? He even took her refreshments with him. Derek's favorability displayed 10%. Penelope still didn't understand how this game's settings worked. She couldn't figure out how these men's favorability ratings were calculated. She felt like she was increasingly deviating from the trajectory of the game she played before entering this world. After a while, she finally found the hole near the training grounds. She figured the knights must have used this hole to skip training. The walls were heavily guarded. Why didn't that wicked system tell her about this earlier? Penelope thought as she brushed off her yellow dress. It was fortunate she found the hole before the festival. Even though she was allowed outside, they would definitely order guards to follow her closely. She rustled the bushes to hide the hole from view. Getting out during the day was easy, but the problem was she had to attend the slave auction to find Icles at midnight, so she would have to be discreet. She had worked hard to find Icles. She hoped he would be worth the effort. Penelope stood up. A voice called out, asking what she was doing there. Startled, she turned. It was Renan. His favorability rating had increased to 7%. Seeing this, she thought these brothers' favorability ratings seemed to increase rapidly when they didn't have to see her face. He noticed her staring and asked what she was looking at so intently, planning to do something. She thought it was a shame for all her effort to reset things. Then she replied, "I was just taking a walk." He responded, "Just taking a walk." And then continued laughing with Renan. "So, you were just taking a stroll and somehow ended up near that hole at the base of the wall. What a coincidence." You feign surprise and ask, "Huh? What are you doing here?" He replies, Don't you know there's a training ground over there? I just finished training, and I'm heading back. You stare as he pulls up his shirt, wiping off his sweat, revealing almost half of his body. You murmur, he's got a great physique, and his face is handsome too. You see he's still standing there, so you ask, is there something else? He hesitates, no, nothing. You murmur, what was that? And then say, well, you go ahead. I'll continue my walk. He suddenly says, give it up. You ask, what do you mean? He replies, drop those ridiculous ideas. Have you forgotten the time you followed the knights, tried to climb the wall, and broke your leg? If there were a book compiling all the gossip the knights spread about you, it would probably fill 10 volumes. You mutter, oh dear, Penelope, and then say, that's not at all. He continues, just ask for permission and use the main gate. Don't try any of that silly wall-climbing nonsense and get yourself punished again. You insist, I told you that's not it. He replies, fine, suit yourself, and turns to leave. You're still thinking about the 7% favorability rating when the system suddenly displays a notification. Surprise event. Date with Renan during the festival. Will you participate in the event? Reward. Increase Renan's affection by 3%. You mutter, what was bound to happen has happened. Do I really have to participate in an event with that brat? And the reward is only 3%. No way. That brat has died so many times he's given up on asking for a sword. That cheeky brat. He thinks I'm just doing this to enjoy the festival. Later that evening, you're doing something furtive and say, if you've so earnestly advised me, then of course I'll do as you say. It's only proper. It turns out you've tied bed sheets together and thrown them out the window. You think everything's ready. I'm wearing a cloak too, so I shouldn't be noticed. This voucher is the reward the Duke gave me for the last incident. I feel a little guilty for not using any of it for its intended purpose. I've also brought some gold coins with me. Now all I need to do is land safely. You look down and murmur, it's only 2 floors. I've walked around the mansion several times to estimate. I'm sure the rope is long enough to reach the ground. Then you start to climb down the makeshift rope, but it's too short. Your face pales, and you think, what am I going to do? If I jump, it'll make a noise. And it's so high. Suddenly, you let go, but you don't fall. You murmur, what do I do now? Terrified, you close your eyes and start to cry. Then, suddenly a voice calls out, hey, what in the world are you doing? You look down and see it's Renan. You gasp, Renan. He looks up, startled, and also gasps, huh? You ask, what are you doing here? He replies, are you kidding? My room is right below yours. You think, how am I supposed to know the layout of this mansion? He continues, I'm speechless. Are you trying to run away? You reply, run away. No, I was just going to go outside for a bit. He replies, these days, girls your age like to use wall climbing as a way to get out, huh? You just managed to say, well, when the bedsheet rope suddenly loosens. She also slipped and cried out. Renan, seeing this, rushed out in alarm and said, let go. Penelope responded, huh? What did you say? He continued, let go and jump down towards me. I'll catch you. Penelope thought to herself, how can I trust you? He continued, if you don't want to, then just dangle there all night. Penelope replied, you better not miss. You have to catch me. Then she let go and closed her eyes. She probably didn't have much hope that he would actually catch her, but he did, catching her in his strong arms. He looked at her, smiling, and said, got you. She said, put me down, put me down. He set her down and asked, where were you planning on going? She replied, I was just going for a walk. He said, I'll call your father if you keep saying you're going for a walk. She muttered, anything's better than being caught by Derek. Then replied, I was going to see the festival. He responded, see the festival. You were going to sneak out at this time of night and cause a commotion. She replied, I have my reasons. You don't need to know. He responded, what reasons don't require even a guard? Don't you know how dangerous it is to leave the house at this hour? Aren't you afraid at all? She replied, Renan, I really appreciate you helping me, but you told me before, right, that I would handle my own affairs, so you don't need to worry about it anymore. He was taken aback, only managing to utter, but she continued, I'm almost an adult now. I'll take responsibility for everything that happens. Besides, at times like these, family usually turns a blind eye and takes care of each other. Before she could finish, he said, then I'll go with you. Is that all right? I'll be your guard. And I'll look after you like family. I won't tell your father. Let's go. Penelope asked in surprise, don't you hate me? Why? He yelled, who hates you? You're the one who said you hated me 100,000 times, that you hated me to death. She immediately shushed him, fearing they would be discovered. She thought to herself, if you don't, then why are you yelling like that? And when did I ever say that to him? He continued, anyway, that you should know that even if you don't like me, I'll still follow you. Suddenly, a system notification popped up. Unexpected event. Visit the festival with Renan. Do you wish to proceed with this event? Reward. Renan's favorability plus 3%. Secret item. At this point, she selected yes and said to him, "All right, let's go." Suddenly, they heard shuffling footsteps. Both of them quickly crouched down and hid. A voice called out, "What are you two doing there?" Their faces turned pale. Turning around, they breathed a sigh of relief. It was Derek. Penelope said, "Brother." Derek asked, "What are you two doing out here in the middle of the night?" Penelope stammered, trying to explain. Renan answered, "She wants to visit the festival, brother." Derek replied, "Visit the festival." Renan replied, "Yes. So I'm going along as her guard. And to keep an eye on her, too." Penelope thought to herself, "This is bad. If I can't even get out of the house, how am I supposed to find iCloud?" Derek calmly said, "The rule for escorting nobles is 2 guards. I'll come along as well." Penelope thought, "What?" The system popped up another notification. Unexpected event. Visit the festival with Derek. Do you wish to proceed with this event? Reward. Derek's favorability plus 3%. Secret item. Penelope thought, well. The festival was crowded with vendors, their calls echoing constantly. Sweets here, freshly baked sugar cookies, commemorative coins for the National Foundation Day. Buy one for yourself, buy a gift for your loved one. Renan suddenly asked, "Weren't you the one who wanted to go sightseeing?" Penelope replied, "I am sightseeing." He retorted, "You haven't bought anything. I thought you were crazy about jewelry." Penelope thought, "How can I enjoy myself with you two around? This is serious. I still don't know where to find X list." Suddenly, Renan glanced at something and pulled her along, saying, "Come here for a second." The owner greeted them enthusiastically. "Oh my. Welcome, welcome. Please have a look around. I have many precious items from the East this time." Penelope wondered why the sudden change. Renan said, "Didn't you hear him? Try something on." Penelope thought, "But my jewelry box is already full of things like these." Suddenly, Derek reached down, picked something up, and said, "This one looks nice." The owner, seeing this, exclaimed, "Oh my, you have a discerning eye. This necklace is made of rare Eastern gems, crafted day and night for 3 months." Penelope looked at it and thought, what a coincidence. The color of the gems is very similar to my hair color. Could he have chosen it for that reason? She said, so Renan is going to buy that. Then I'll buy this. She picked up a mask and asked the owner, how much is this? Renan turned and whispered, "I'm a little curious about you lately. Have you been feeling unwell? Sometimes you get dizzy and wake up not knowing where you are, things like that." Penelope replied, "If you don't want to buy it for me, just say so." He responded, "It's not that, but do you really want this?" She answered yes. He paid the owner, but looked back at her with a suspicious expression. Penelope was thinking, "I have an idea." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed. Derek said, "It's going to get crowded. Just you wait." Penelope asked, "What was that sound?" Derek replied, "Sounds like the parade has started." Firecrackers went off with loud bangs. The crowd surged, jostling Penelope repeatedly. She let out a small cry, "Ah." Derek offered his hand and said, "Take my hand." Without thinking, Penelope took his hand, leaned against him, and said, "Thank you." The singing and dancing intensified, and the firecrackers grew more frequent, jostling Penelope again until she lost hold of Derek's hand. She cried out in a panic, "Oh, Derek." They both looked at each other and reached out, but it was too late. Separated from Derek, Penelope found herself in an unfamiliar place. She wondered, "Oh no, where am I?" She felt something bulky in her hand. It was Derek's rose emblem, which had fallen into her hand when she lost his grip. The system reappeared. Penelope gasped. It presented her with a choice. A new chapter had begun, the slave of a fallen nation. X list. Do you wish to be immediately transported to the slave market? 2 options, yes and no. Penelope's eyes widened. What? Why so suddenly? She chose yes and arrived at the slave market. When she arrived, Penelope thought she had failed entirely because of her brothers. She was surprised things had worked out like this. It was fortunate. She saw that everyone entering wore a mask. She thought to herself, so everyone hides their face when coming to a place like this. All right then. She took out a mask, put it on, and joined the line of people waiting to enter. When it was her turn, the guard requested, "Please show me your invitation." Penelope asked, "Invitation," and thought, "I had no idea I needed one." The guard explained, "This establishment operates strictly on a membership basis. Without an invitation, you cannot enter." If that's the case, then perhaps next time. Before he could finish, Penelope interrupted, "Wait a moment." She quickly took out Derek's rose emblem and presented it to the guard, saying here. Upon seeing it, the guard exclaimed, "This rose emblem." Penelope continued, "I seem to have misplaced my invitation. Would this suffice as a substitute?" The guard hurriedly replied, "I didn't recognize you, honored guest. Please come in." Penelope thought to herself, that was a close one. The Duke Eckhart's influence reaches even a place like this. Before she even reached the entrance inside, a masked woman greeted her warmly. "Welcome. We will escort you to the basement level." The echoing sound of footsteps on the stairs resonated as they descended. Upon reaching the bottom, a gate suddenly opened on its own. Beyond the gate lay a vast space. On a stage, the auctioneer was speaking, "Ladies and gentlemen, finally, the day's event has begun. We have prepared many exquisite items for you all gathered here today. If you desire something, please speak up and take it, as many as you like." The exquisite items he referred to were slaves standing side by side, waiting to be purchased. The auctioneer continued, "Here is the first item. Now, then about this one." Before he could finish, bids began to rise from the audience. 60 gold coins. 80 gold coins. The auctioneer asked, 80 gold coins. "Do I hear any higher bids?" Someone shouted 100 gold coins. The auctioneer's gavel banged, signifying a successful bid. The bidding continued for the other slaves in a similar fashion. 1,200 gold coins. "Do I hear 1,300? This is a rare commodity." 1,200 gold coins. "Sold." The gavel banged repeatedly. Penelope sat in the audience, observing silently as the slaves were auctioned off. Finally, the auctioneer announced, "Now, esteemed guests, we've kept you waiting long enough. Finally, we present the most anticipated item of this event. From the land of the bandits, utterly defeated by the Loka Empire." As he spoke, a figure emerged, the clinking of shackles accompanying each step. The auctioneer continued, "A slave from Delman." Penelope's eyes widened as she recognized the captive. She whispered, "The fifth conquest target." The auctioneer continued his introduction. "Now, I'm sure you've all heard the rumors, but seeing is believing, isn't it? So, we prepared a special demonstration. Please observe." Men in black brought out a large, square container. They began to remove the dark cloth covering it. Penelope whispered, "What were they doing?" She gasped in horror as ravenous wolves lunged towards the captive. The wolves advanced. Ichlas held a single piece of armor in one hand and a wooden sword in the other. His hands and feet were bound tightly. Penelope Eckhart was frightened and confused, wondering if she should immediately offer to buy the slave. It was as if they were forcing him to stand there and wait for death. As soon as she thought this, ferocious wolves, snarling and howling, lunged at Ichlas as if to devour him alive. He seemed defenseless, bound, and with only a wooden sword. But he looked at the wolves with sharp eyes and reacted powerfully. Gripping the sword with his bound hands, he struck down the fearsome wolves as they lunged. One by one, they fell. Not only did he manage to knock them down, but Ichlas also dodged all their attacks. Bella Lopez's face darkened in surprise. Ichlas finally pierced the last wolf's belly and then stood panting with exhaustion. Instead of being worried, the onlookers cheered and clapped excitedly. The auctioneer loudly announced Ichlas's name as Slave Ichlas. When some men tried to lead Ichlas away, he resisted fiercely, as if possessed by a powerful force, struggling against their coercion. Ichlas didn't hesitate to fight back against those who were trying to treat him like a slave to be sold, all for the sake of his freedom. Despite Ichlas's exhausting resistance, the auctioneer remained unfazed and calmly reassured the audience that they had safety measures in place. Having reassured the audience, the auctioneer announced the starting bid for this slave at 500 gold pieces. A short while later, several people bid higher and higher amounts. Then a man scoffed and offered 10 million gold pieces. Just when it seemed like that would be the final bid, a familiar voice rang out, calmly stating 100 million. Everyone was startled, and a murmur went through the crowd. The price was exorbitant. The auctioneer stammered in surprise. Finally, the auctioneer asked if there were any further bids, wanting to be certain that 100 million was indeed the final offer. The man who had bid 10 million, previously smug, now looked stunned and dismayed. Penelope Eckhart thought to herself that even if someone else bid, she would offer 10 times more, even 1 billion if necessary. This felt connected to her destiny. Finally, the gavel fell. The final bid was 100 million, and Iklis was hers. A short while later, the auctioneer led Penelope Eckhart to a room where Iklis was being held. He had been slapped repeatedly for times across the face, and his body was covered in scratches. Penelope Eckhart felt fortunate that she had bought Iklis when she did. Otherwise, he might have been tortured even more. She then informed them that Duke Edward would be handling the payment. The auctioneer said nothing and handed Penelope Eckhart a red ring. She asked what it was, and he replied that it was a certificate of ownership. He explained that it was given to the person who became the slave's owner. He went on to explain that the collar around the slave's neck was enchanted with a paralyzing spell. Pressing the ring would release an electrical current from the jewel, allowing control over the slave. Bela Lopez remembered the scene on stage. They had used this to control Iklis when he lost control and tried to escape. The auctioneer added a warning that pressing the ring for too long could be fatal, so caution was advised. He also reminded her that this slave was dangerous, so the ring should be worn at all times to prevent incidents. As the auctioneer offered to let Penelope Eckhart try it, Iklis's eyes flashed with a sharp glint. The auctioneer and Penelope Eckhart looked back in alarm to see Iklis using his legs to strangle his tormentor, choking the life out of him. After watching Zeles, Iklis, bound even tighter, constricted his tormentor's breathing. The auctioneer quickly ordered his subordinates to intervene before the man suffocated. Penelope's face darkened with worry for Iklis, fearing the subordinates would beat him to death. She looked at the red ring in her hand, hesitant to use it, but knowing she must in such circumstances. After pressing and releasing the ring as a warning to Iklis, she approached him. The auctioneer tried to stop her, advising her to stay away. But Penelope continued, gently touching Iklis's chin and removing her mask. "Iklis," she said softly, "look at your master's face. The one who just paid 100 million gold pieces for you." Iklis's gaze softened as he looked at Penelope with surprise. She explained that she had bought him for 100 million, not fearing rumors about the price, as no noble would spend a fortune on a mere slave like him. "And now, even if you escape, where will you go?" "Nowhere. Nothing." She gripped his chin. "I hate those who don't understand their situation." She finished by saying she saw potential in Iklis, which is why she invested so much. Now, she wanted him to prove his worth, to justify the 100 million, or she would abandon him there. Since Iklis was gagged, Penelope told him to nod if he agreed to go with her, as she needed to return home. After a moment of thought, Iklis nodded. Seeing Iklis finally understand, Penelope immediately ordered the auctioneer to remove his shackles. She would personally take him home. The auctioneer, worried for Penelope, nonetheless obeyed. Penelope then ordered one of the auctioneer's subordinates to remove Iklis's clothes and give them to her, leaving only his underwear. The subordinate was startled but couldn't refuse a customer. Penelope tossed a bag of coins to the subordinate. After Iklis put on the subordinate's clothes, Penelope led him home. The auctioneer reminded her to be careful, while the subordinate awkwardly hugged himself. Reaching the door, Penelope suddenly realized she had forgotten the way back to the Duke's residence. Iklis remained silent, looking ahead calmly. Penelope stammered, telling Iklis to just follow her for now. Just then, a shout rang out, and the dark-haired man who had bid 10 million for Iklis earlier appeared, clearly upset that Penelope had outbid him. Penelope politely greeted him, vaguely remembering him from the earlier event. He scowled angrily, introducing himself as Vinter, demanding she hand over the slave. Penelope told Iklis to step back. Though slightly afraid, she saw this as a chance to gain favor with him. She firmly told Vinter that she had won the auction with a bid of 100 million gold pieces. Vinter's face darkened in shock. He excused himself, claiming he hadn't brought enough money. Penelope, unmoved, offered to give him 10 million now, and the remaining 90 million, actually 990 million, in a few days. Vita was stunned, asking her to repeat the amount. Then Penelope Eckhart simply reiterated that if he bid 100 million, she would bid 1 billion gold pieces. So, the final price for this man is 1 billion. Hearing this, Mr. Green hesitantly shouted, asking why she was so insistent and daring. Did she know who he was? Penelope Eckhart, unafraid, calmly retorted, "Stubborn. Well, do you know who I am?" He, furious, was about to strike Penelope Eckhart when Ichlas couldn't stand any longer. He quickly rushed forward, grabbed the man's hand, and twisted it until the cracking of bone could be heard. At that moment, Ichlas saw the other nobles intending to physically attack Penelope Eckhart. He immediately rushed over and broke the old man's wrist. The old man cried out in pain, yelling, "How dare you? I'll kill you all." Ichlas, his voice calm, pulled Penelope Eckhart behind him. "Please step back." His eyes darkened as he looked at them, then quickly lunged forward, attacking. The sounds of slaps and the cries of the nobles rose continuously. Penelope Eckhart could only watch. She stared wide-eyed at everything that was happening, unable to stop herself from thinking, "Blood. How dare I threaten someone like that?" The image of Callisto from that day flashed through her mind. The smell of death. "I'm scared." Then, she couldn't help but raise her hand to her neck, touching the wound Callisto had inflicted that day. "I'm scared." Ichlas, finished fighting, was surrounded by blood and bodies. His hands, covered in blood, were dripping. The nobleman, terrified, crouched down, his back against the wall. Ichlas turned and walked towards Penelope Eckhart, to her astonishment. Without waiting for her to speak, Ichlas knelt down, surprising her. "Master, I have killed them all." He took Penelope Eckhart's hand and pressed it to his cheek. "Praise me, master." Bella Lopez, seeing the favorability rating increase to 18%, confirmed to herself, "That's right, my choice was absolutely correct." Ichlas, not receiving praise, glanced gravely at the ring on her finger. The next morning, when she returned, Marie and the butler rushed out, panicked and worried, asking after her. Seeing their worry, Penelope Eckhart's face showed distress. "Oh no." While I was wandering around, it became broad daylight. I tried to return quietly. I forgot that when returning, the system doesn't have an instant teleportation mode. Then, Penelope Eckhart asked if her father knew. Marie quietly replied, "Of course. The young masters took the knights to look for you everywhere, all night. Since early morning, those slave traders have been coming and causing a ruckus at the mansion." Penelope Eckhart, annoyed and frustrated, put her hand to her forehead, sighing. These hot-headed people, demanding payment at the crack of dawn. And Derek and Renan too. I really shouldn't go out with them. Marie, worried about her health, quickly said, "Miss, first please come inside and get some rest." Before she could finish, the butler interrupted, "Miss, wait a moment." The old butler looked towards Ichlas, asking, "Who is this?" Penelope Eckhart quickly introduced him and instructed the butler, "This is Ichlas. From today onwards, he will live at the Duke's mansion. Give him a proper room and let him rest." The butler looked troubled. "But, my lady, that's impossible. We can't bring someone of unknown origin into the Eckhart mansion." Penelope, irritated, replied to the butler, "It's only been a few days, and my words already seem like a joke to you. I walked all night, and I'm tired. Take care of him so he can stay. I'm relying on you." The butler reluctantly agreed. "I understand, my lady." Penelope and Ichlas then turned to leave. As they walked, Penelope sighed, "Thank goodness, I've avoided another argument." Suddenly, the Duke and Renan startled and looked back. Seeing the two enter, they exclaimed in surprise, "Penelope." Penelope hesitated. "Father." "Renan." The Duke frowned, looking at Penelope disapprovingly. "Come with me to my study now." Seeing her father's expression, Penelope worried, thinking, "Oh no, here we go again. How am I going to explain this?" Meanwhile, Renan approached the pair. He glared at Ichlas and demanded, "Who is this beggar-looking man? Explain yourself." Penelope ignored him and turned to Ichlas. "Follow the butler." Ichlas. Renan, not getting the answer he wanted, snapped, "Follow who? What does he think he is? How dare you bring him here?" Leaving Ichlas behind, Penelope continued walking, saying, "I don't have time for this." "Calm down." Ichlas watched her go, After removing her cloak, Penelope opened the door to the Duke's study. As she stepped inside, she heard her full name being called, Penelope Eckhart. Hearing her father's voice, she replied, "Yes, father." The Duke, looking weary, rubbed his face with his hand. "Explain everything." Penelope looked at him, a troubled expression on her face. Penelope apologized to her father yet again for leaving without permission. The Duke was exasperated. She had apologized countless times, yet nothing ever changed. His face darkened, knowing her apologies were empty. What was she thinking? Penelope slammed her hand on the desk and stood up, declaring she would never do anything to disgrace the family. The Duke, furious at having to stay up all night for this, told her to get to the point. He scowled and asked why she had left the mansion without permission and who those insolent men were who had arrived earlier that morning. His voice then lowered as he continued, "What happened last night?" Penelope's face darkened. She took a deep breath and remained silent for a moment before explaining that she wanted to see the night festival. He retorted that she could have asked for permission. Penelope replied that he probably wouldn't have allowed it. The Duke, his face darkening further, asked her what she meant by that. Penelope recounted the events of the previous night, explaining that she had snuck out and run into two of her brothers. They initially tried to stop her, but she begged them to escort her, as she didn't want to wake the Knights while they had guests. She then got separated from them in the crowd. While wandering alone, she almost got into trouble with a lecherous nobleman. The Duke's face contorted in anger. He jumped to his feet and roared, "What? Who was it? Which scoundrel dared to do such a thing?" Bella Lopez was also surprised by her father's outburst. She stammered, uncomfortable with the Duke's display of power, and said she didn't remember clearly. Something like Gray or something. Hearing this, he sat down heavily, muttering to himself. Penelope spoke hesitantly. "Anyway, father, Ichlas was passing by and helped me." The Duke fell silent, then asked Ichlas, "You mean the one you brought back?" Penelope replied, "Yes. He escaped from a slave auction and was running away." The Duke frowned. "A slave? He was a nobleman from Delman, a defeated nation," Penelope explained. Penelope continued, "Because he helped me, the slave traders were chasing him to recapture him." "I didn't give you that check to buy things like slaves," he reiterated. Penelope explained again, "But he was almost dragged back there because of me. Even animals show gratitude. I'm a member of the Eckhart family, so how could I?" She was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps and a slam against the door. Penelope startled and turned to see Derek. Derek frowned angrily and asked Penelope, "Where the hell have you been?" He advanced towards her. Penelope, startled and flustered, stammered, "Father, brother, what are you doing here?" Before Penelope could say anything else, Derek burst out, "I've been searching every corner of the capital all night. I even searched the red light district and the underworld. I was terrified you'd been kidnapped." Penelope's eyes widened in surprise, wondering why he was acting this way. She remembered Derek's worried expression when she was lost in the crowd, how he reached out to her and called her name. She thought, "He doesn't despise me. Isn't that why he can't stand being called my brother?" She had never cared about his thoughts before. So why was he acting so serious now? While she was still stunned, her father called to Derek, his face creased with anger. "We're having a private conversation. Why are you being so rude?" Derek fell silent. He paused, then turned and politely apologized. Penelope watched him, thinking, what's with him? Why is he standing near father instead of leaving? Her father glanced at Derek and said to Penelope, "Well, I understand your situation now." But, he continued, "Why didn't you just let him go? Why bring him back to the mansion?" Penelope spoke formally and seriously. "I want Ichlas to become my knight squire." Her father hesitated. "A knight of our family." Penelope continued, "He's very skilled in martial arts, so his capture bounty was quite high. Although he's a slave, he'll be very useful." Derek, standing beside them, couldn't listen any longer. He retorted, if he received proper swordsmanship training. He then changed the subject. "There's no shortage of people who would consider it an honor just to run errands for the Eckhart family. And you're considering giving a slave, not even a commoner, swordsmanship training." Penelope maintained a calm facade, but inwardly seethed with anger. She wondered why Derek wouldn't just leave and kept getting in her way. Closing her eyes, Penelope firmly stated that she wanted Ichlas as her personal guard. Penelope confirmed, "Yes. Even though I'm confined to the mansion, I can't be without a guard forever." Her father sternly retorted, "Why can't you? There are over 20,000 knights within the ducal territory alone." Bella Lopez tilted her head and softly said To be honest, I know my reputation isn't very good among the knights. That's why father insisted on not assigning me one. Isn't that right, father? Her father remained silent, his face darkening. Penelope continued, I don't want to entrust my safety to those unwilling to protect me. If I were to leave this house in the future, I'm not sure something like last night wouldn't happen again. Her father suddenly yelled, leave. What are you talking about? Penelope leaving the house. Penelope calmly and politely reiterated, yes, it's just that I'm about to become an adult. I don't know what the future holds. She then asked, is it still too early to consider this? With a serious look, Penelope said, this is for my own safety. Please, father, let me choose my own guard. I beg you and Derek. Her father and Derek fell silent. Penelope thought they couldn't object. After all, the Duke's family bore some responsibility for the unfortunate incident the previous night. But the important thing isn't whether I have a guard or not. Either way, I need a reason to keep Nicholas here at the mansion by my side. Her father, after a moment of silence, began to speak, but a man's voice interrupted. First, tell me, you must have been terrified. Now, go upstairs and get some sleep. I'll have the doctor call for you when you wake up. Penelope bowed her head and thanked her father, her heart pounding in her chest. Derek stood silently, watching Penelope. Suddenly, a voice called out, Derek, I need to speak with you. Stay here for a moment. This made him pause. He turned to look at Penelope, startling her as she closed the door. She thought to herself, isn't he finished already? What else is there? She sighed, thinking at least I got through the hardest part. Suddenly, something shimmered. The system appeared, displaying the message. Attend the festival with Derek. Event quest failed. Well, it's only a 3% increase anyway, she thought as the number 13% appeared. The best offense is avoiding them in this house, she mused as she descended the stairs. She overheard, can't you speak? Why aren't you answering? Renan grabbed Nicholas's shoulder. I'm asking you, where did you come from? Penelope approached, asking what's going on. Renan said, oh, you're here. Tell me, what the hell is with this brat? The numbers 18% and 10% appeared above Renan and Nicholas's heads. Penelope looked up. Nicholas, come here. Nicholas responded with an irritated expression. She asked him if he hadn't heard Emily. He's going to be my personal guard in the future. Derek angrily said, personal guard? You're going to use this slave as a guard? Penelope replied, yes. Derek said, did you run away from home and eat something strange? You don't care about other people's appearances. Annoyed, she replied, I told you I didn't run away from home. Turning to leave, she said, I'm tired. Let's talk later. Derek stopped her. Where are you going? We're not finished yet. His hand reached out as if to grab her hair. Suddenly, Nicholas stepped between them. Derek scoffed, look at this, Derek said while Nicholas watched silently. Penelope placed her hand on Nicholas's shoulder and called, Nicholas. Her face hardened as she said, stop it. She thought to herself, I just brought him into the house. I can't let him be kicked out right away. Derek's voice boomed angrily. What do you need a guard for? You're cooped up in your room all day anyway. She replied, I need one now. I'm afraid something like yesterday will happen again. Derek shouted, then use those nights outside. The bad things about you could fill 10 books, couldn't they? Penelope's expression darkened as she glanced at him. I don't need knights who don't respect me like that. Derek was speechless. She continued, let me tell you something, Derek. I was lucky this time. She said firmly, if it weren't for Nicholas yesterday, I would have been a corpse lying motionless in that back alley. Derek looked shocked. Penelope turned and said, sorry for making you worry. The system brother appeared with a request. Go to the festival with Derek. Event quest failed. A friend's favor. Try again. No. Reward. Derek's favorability plus 3%. Secret item. She chose no. A knocking sound was heard. Her maid looked around. Penelope stopped. She turned and asked, how long are you going to follow me? Nicholas said, but you told me I had to prove my worth, didn't you? She thought, is he planning to follow me into my room? It seems he really hates going back to that auction house. She pointed her neck. She thought, in normal mode, he's a polite and serious knight. She thought about something else, but he hasn't been tamed yet. He's more dangerous than I thought. Yes, she said to him, but that doesn't mean you have to wait on me hand and foot. Hearing him murmur something, she continued, didn't you hear me just now? I brought you here to make you my personal guard. He replied, yes. She commanded, then listened carefully. Pointing, she said, making the Duke acknowledge your presence here is your first assigned task. Nicholas asked the task. She replied, that's right. We can't keep a useless person at the Duke's house forever, can we? Hearing this, he pondered. She thought, did I say too much? She said, I believe you won't betray my trust, right? Suddenly, she saw the number above his head increase to 20%. The number 20% appeared. The note read, "Unlike normal mode, where favorability starts at 30%, hard mode starts at 0%. Notably, some male leads start with negative favorability." A thought flashed through her mind. Only 20% now. When will it reach 30% and this game finally end? Well, I'm glad nonetheless. A voice rang out. "Emily, take Ichlas to the place the butler has prepared." Hearing this, Emily immediately obeyed. "Yes, Mississippi," Ichlas softly called. "Master." Ichlas said, "I will do my best to earn your praise." Penelope turned around. She raised her hand close to his hair. Her hand gently stroked Ichlas's head as she thought, "Although I'm still a little afraid of him. Though my choice wasn't wrong. I hope I can escape this place." "Derek," Ichlas grabbed Penelope's wrist and said, "Master, you saved me. Master, I'm so happy." She thought to herself, stealing her resolve. Outside the mansion, a thought surfaced. In the end, the Duke and Derek didn't kick Ichlas out. Inside her room, Penelope was reading. She thought, "Everyone has left me to confine myself in my room for a while, using self-reflection as an excuse." She continued to think, however, the recipe for the person searching for all the nobles named Clay in the Empire. Emily also mentioned that the discipline of the knights in the family has become even stricter. Under the clear blue sky, Penelope mused, "Anyway, I completed the mission to save Ichlas, so I feel a little at peace." As Penelope was putting a forkful of food into her mouth, a voice exclaimed, "It seems your taste has changed recently." Penelope asked, "Huh?" The maid, Emily, said before, "You never touched anything spicy, but now you like this spicy chicken." Hearing this, Penelope was startled. She said awkwardly, "Well, tastes change as you get older." Emily laughed and replied, "That's true. Let me get that for you." Emily looked attentive. Penelope quietly watched her, then turned away and sighed. She thought, "Next time, I have to tell them to add more garlic topping." She said, "I'm full." Emily asked, "Would you like some more melon ice cream?" "Yes." A voice announced, "The National Founding Festival is coming soon, miss." Penelope replied, "Oh, right." Emily said, "Oh, and also, Butler Finno asked me to tell you that the jewelry you ordered from the jewelry store has arrived." Penelope wondered, ordered. Emily explained, "You called for the jeweler before the festival." Penelope recalled the image of a man. She mused, "Right, I should also think carefully about this retreat." Emily asked, "Should I go get them?" Penelope replied, "Yes." She then said, "Now's the time." Emily exclaimed, "Wow." Emily praised, "The colors are so beautiful." Emily's eyes sparkled as she asked, "These are high-quality jeweled cufflinks, aren't they, Mississippi? Are you planning to give them to the Duke?" Hearing this, Penelope thought to herself, "No way." She said, "Emily, I need someone's help. Does anyone know about the informants in the nomadic merchants district?" Emily asked, "Need help?" She paused thoughtfully. Emily replied, "If it's about informants, my roommate knows about them." She used to work in the nomadic merchants district. Mississippi. Penelope asked, "Is that so? What's her name?" Emily answered, "Lena." Penelope immediately asked, "Where is she now?" Emily interrupted, But if it's just some errands, I can do them better." Mississippi. Emily lowered her head and explained, "She can't keep a secret and is quite clumsy too." Penelope Eckhart remained silent for a moment, then said, "All right, I'll try trusting you this time. And you've been quite perceptive too." Emily beamed. "Thank you, Mississippi. I won't disappoint you." "That's the spirit," Penelope Eckhart replied. "Whether that hairpin exists or not depends entirely on how you handle this task." Emily's expression faltered. Penelope Eckhart's face turned serious. "Be careful with every action, Emily. Do well, or you'll be dismissed this time. This is a good opportunity for you." "Yes." Emily bowed her head. "Yes." Mississippi. Penelope Eckhart continued, "While I'm still in this trial period, after you finish your morning work, go find the information brokers. I'll entrust that task to you." Emily's voice was laced with confusion. "Find someone. What kind of person?" Penelope Eckhart explained, "I'll describe it clearly in a letter. You just need to deliver it to the information brokers. Feel free to use my funds to pay the fees." She added, "But not just any information broker. Choose only high-ranking ones, the kind who usually deal in rare items or valuable information." "Can you do that?" Emily's voice was full of confidence. "Yes, please entrust it to me." Penelope Eckhart thought about the gold coins. She'll easily find him, she mused. After all, Vinner's Trade Company is the largest and most famous. The image of a girl with a rabbit mask flashed in her mind. He'll find Yvonne Eckhart, who has amnesia and is living as a commoner, and bring her back to the Duke's family. She imagined the girl saying, You helped me find my real family. Penelope Eckhart sighed. I shouldn't complain about easy mode. Penelope Eckhart considered her options. Of course, I know the whole truth, that the owner of this handkerchief is Vinter, and he's also the head of the secret trade company. But I won't personally go looking for him like Yvonne. She murmured, I have to make them notice me. Seeing Penelope Eckhart's expression, Emily thought, could it be that Miss Penelope? Emily's gaze, fixed on Penelope Eckhart, brightened. Has experienced her first love. No wonder she's changed so much lately. Emily smiled brightly, thinking, it seems good days are coming. Penelope Eckhart, noticing Emily's expression, asked, what are you talking about? Suddenly, a knock came from the door. A voice called out, Miss, it's Fenno. She turned and replied, the butler. Footsteps echoed softly. Penelope Eckhart crossed her arms. This distance is good, she thought. Come in, she said. The door opened. Butler Fenno bowed his head. Forgive me, Miss Penelope Eckhart. There's an invitation for you from the Imperial Palace. She looked puzzled. The Imperial Palace. Fenno replied, yes. It seems they're holding a simple banquet to commemorate the victory on the last day of the National Founding Festival. Penelope Eckhart was even more confused. Why would they invite me? Didn't they already hold a grand welcome-back banquet? The butler hesitated, his face slightly troubled. This banquet, is being hosted personally by the Crown Prince. Penelope Eckhart froze. She looked at the butler and asked, the Imperial Palace. The Crown Prince. His words were like a cold gust of wind. How did my father react? She asked. Butler Fenner stammered, well, that is, he admitted it. This invitation is addressed only to Miss Penelope. The Duke is still unaware. Penelope's heart pounded. This news was like a bolt from the blue. How could this be? Penelope exclaimed. Fenner flinched. Mississippi. She thought, that lunatic. He did this on purpose. The Crown Prince's words echoed in her mind. The next time we meet, you best be prepared with a thorough explanation as to how and why you can't love me. Penelope's face was grim. If I survive this, is this how the scenario will play out? A hesitant voice broke through her thoughts. What shall we do with the invitation, miss? She wondered. Turning, she collapsed on her bed and covered her forehead with her hand. I'm sick, she declared. Yes, miss, Fenner replied. I'm burning up, Fenner, she continued dramatically. Fenner startled. Huh. He quickly recovered. If Miss Penelope is ill, it's a serious matter. Do you have a cold? If I had a relapse of the metal poisoning, wouldn't that be better? She retorted. Understanding dawned on Fenner. I understand. I'll take my leave. Please rest well, miss. The door clicked shut. Emily, her maid, returned. Miss, are you all right? Although you've fully recovered from the metal poisoning, if you have a headache, I'll call a doctor. It's fine. There's no need, Penelope replied weakly. Then she changed her mind. Actually, call the doctor. I need to spread rumors about this. She planned to stay home until the Crown Prince lost interest in her. Outside the mansion, a man with a familiar black collar stood in the pouring rain. Rain lashed down. Emily brushed water off her coat. I'm back. At first, everyone had been indifferent, but their eyes lit up when they saw the jewel box. Oh, and one more thing, Emily added. I finally met a rather strange nomadic merchant group. There wasn't a single employee, just a man sitting still as a statue. He wore a white rabbit mask. Penelope smiled. Good. The fish has taken a bait. Thank you, Emily. You must be tired from the rain. Go and rest. Emily smiled back. Yes, Mississippi. I'll return for dinner. The door clicked shut again. Alone in her room, Penelope stared out the window. Why has it been raining all day? The rain poured down. Her gaze was fixed. She remembered being a child, envious of her friends whose mothers brought them umbrellas at school. The image of a small girl walking in the rain appeared in her mind. That feeling had persisted even after her mother's death. She recalled memories of her brother on rainy days, when the butler would pick him up. Stay in the car. Young master, he'd say. No one said it was going to rain. I'm soaked, he'd complain. What about Mississippi, the butler would ask. She'll figure it out. Her brother would snap. Let's go. The little girl's hair was drenched. Back in reality, she muttered, how unlucky. She slapped her cheeks lightly and thought, pull yourself together. This isn't the time to relax and enjoy the rain. She picked up her umbrella, thinking, I have to get out of this wretched game as soon as possible. The sound of the pouring rain triggered a thought. Penelope thought, I wanted to do something, so I came outside. But I just kept walking without thinking all the way to the training grounds. Now I'm not in the mood to face those brothers. She thought to herself, I'll go somewhere else. What's the point of seeing them? A faint swooshing sound, the sound of a sword being swung, caught Penelope's attention. She wondered, is someone training even in this rain? Her feet splashing in the puddles. She mused, I heard the training intensity has increased lately. I wonder if it's excessive. The swooshing sounds grew clearer. Penelope stood, holding her umbrella, and watched. The man's back was covered in scars. Looking at him, she thought, looking at the man with all those wounds on his back. A thought flashed through her mind. I saw them at the slave market, but he really does have a lot of scars. Penelope thought to herself, it must be cold. Her footsteps made splashing sounds that mixed with the whooshing of the sword. Suddenly, a sharp shink. Ichlas held his sword across Penelope's neck in the pouring rain. Heavy panting could be heard. Ichlas's eyes changed. Startled, he cried out, Master. The sky was dark with heavy clouds, and the sound of rain filled the air. Penelope looked up and said, It's raining, Ichlas. Ichlas asked, Why are you here? Penelope touched the wooden sword lightly and said, First, let's put this away. Penelope looked up and said, It's raining, Ichlas. Ichlas asked, confused, Why are you here, Miss Penelope? Penelope touched the wooden training sword lightly and said, First, let's put this away, shall we? It's cold. Hearing this, Ichlas seemed to understand. The wooden sword snapped and fell to the ground with a thud. Ichlas fell to his knees and cried, Master. He bowed his head, admitting his fault. I'm sorry. I dare to do such a thing to you, Master. He pleaded, Please punish me. In the pouring rain, Penelope stared at him. Gripping her umbrella tightly, she thought, He's looking at this thing. Looking at the man kneeling in the rain, she mused, if this were a game, I would have died ridiculously in this scene. I keep hitting the replay button until I got through it safely. She thought, what does Penelope have to say to survive this part? Looking at Ichlas's neck, she remembered that he was originally from a noble tribe, but suddenly lost his homeland. He became a slave and had to live at the bottom of society, bowing his head before the arrogant girl who bought him with the money he needed to survive. She thought of saying, It's okay, Ichlas. It's not a big deal, but dismissed the idea. How can I say that? The image of herself with bloody wounds flashed through her mind. I almost got killed by that wooden sword. Tightening her grip on the umbrella, she spoke, Ichlas. She lowered her head slightly and asked, Is someone bothering you, Duke? The night's treatment isn't that bad, is it? Why are you out here training alone in this weather? She continued, You're soaked to the bone. Ichlas remained silent. Penelope reached out and stroked his hair. Tell me, she said, who dared to order you to do this? Ichlas softly replied, No one. He said no one ordered me to. Penelope Eckhart replied, Is that so? Ichlas hesitated. It's just, he confessed, I want to become an official knight. As soon as possible. To be by your side, mistress. That's why I'm training alone. Penelope Eckhart praised him. That's commendable. Looking at the raindrops falling on his head, she offered, You're training so diligently. I should reward you. Shall I have a tent set up so you can practice without getting rained on? Or is there something else you would like? She continued, All right, your sword is broken, so I'll buy you a new one. I'll have to call for a weapons merchant or a blacksmith. A voice called out to her. Mistress, Ichlas said, Just having you visit me more often would be enough. Penelope Eckhart felt a pang of guilt upon hearing his words. You haven't visited me since you left me here. Ichlas softly said, I thought you had forgotten about me. Her lips curved into a small smile. Huh, she thought, looking at him. She recalled his past and thought, now I know for sure. He could tear someone apart like a machine, yet he kneels so easily before me. It gives me a strange feeling, just like when I put on the mask of a kind mistress because of the favorability rating. Perhaps Ichlas, in order to survive, has to pretend to be a loyal dog. Holding her umbrella, she mused, I think I picked up not a puppy, but a wolf cub. Why am I so foolish? Not a single doubt about the safety of trusting Ichlas. I've never played on hard mode before, but now I can't stop. A sound rang out. You can raise it as many times as you like. The number above Ichlas's head increased by 25%. Penelope Eckhart said, You'll catch a cold. Ichlas. She turned to leave, adding, Stop training for today. That's an order. Ichlas called out, Mistress. Ichlas questioned, Aren't you going to punish me? Ichlas said, I almost hurt you, mistress. A thought echoed in Penelope Eckhart's mind. No, he didn't almost hurt me. She smirked, thinking he almost killed me. She spoke aloud, Only fools. Punish a loyal knight for such trivial matters. Looking at Ichlas, sitting in the rain, she said, You didn't do it on purpose. Did you? Thinking to herself, Until the very end, my only guard received neither forgiveness nor the order to stand. She walked away, sighing. Thankfully, the voice calling her name from behind never came again. Gasping slightly, Penelope Eckhart thought, Ichlus's sudden withdrawal isn't safe. How strange. There's no easy withdrawal on hard mode. She recalled the moment the sword was at her throat. What am I believing in? Anxiety filled her. I need to see Venice soon. She reasoned, it's always good to have a backup plan. Inside the mansion, a voice rang out. Miss, we have a reply to your inquiry. Her hand held the letters as she read them intently. A question arose in her mind. Is this all? Emily said, perhaps they need more information about the person you're looking for. Miss. Emily mentioned information about that person. A nobleman wearing a white scarf at the second prince's birthday party. Such vague information makes it impossible to pinpoint their identity. The maid, Emily, offered, I'll try asking other merchant guilds. Penelope quickly refused. No, this list is enough. She thought to herself, from the beginning, I wasn't providing this information to actually find someone. She turned to ask Emily about the number of merchant guilds. You clearly went to 4 locations, but why are there only 3 replies? Emily was startled. What? But then she realized something. Oh, my lady, Emily explained, there's still one place that hasn't contacted us back. It's the merchant guild with the person wearing the rabbit mask. Penelope pondered. Why haven't they replied yet? I thought I had them hooked. If so, I can't start reeling them in. Seeing Penelope's expression, Emily offered, should I go there again, my lady? Penelope replied, it's all right. You paid them quite handsomely, didn't you? Emily confirmed, yes, my lady. As you instructed, I sent the jewel box to those assistants. Penelope praised her, good. You did well. Penelope said, you've worked hard these past few days, Emily. She gestured to the remaining jewels in the box. That's your reward. Emily, slightly stunned, asked what? Emily quickly declined. No, my lady. After organizing them, I'll return them to you right away. This puzzled Penelope. Are the jewels too insignificant? Then I'll add gold as well. Emily explained, no, my lady, it's not that. I don't want those things, my lady. Hearing this, Penelope was a bit confused. Emily continued, the reward is fine, but I'd rather. Suddenly remembering something, Penelope interrupted, Emily, don't worry. I'll remove that needle, just as I promised. Emily still refused. No, there's no need to remove it, my lady. You can keep it. Thinking she misheard, Penelope clarified what. Penelope thought, now then. She said, just say what you want directly. There's no need to beat around the bush. Emily's request finally came out. Emily spoke boldly. I want to become your official maid, Lady Penelope. Hearing this, Penelope thought, an official maid. She said directly, you mean you want to become my subordinate? Emily replied, yes, my lady. Penelope asked, how can I trust you? Hearing this, Emily was taken aback. Penelope continued, I commend you for completing your assigned tasks well. She spoke seriously, but Emily, you're already my personal maid. I can't give you a higher position than that. Her knees buckled, and an apology escaped her lips. My lady, I was wrong. Emily knelt, her face bowed in remorse. All this time, I've made many grave mistakes towards you. Despite being by your side, I was swept away by foolish things around me and dare to hurt you, my lady. Emily expressed, it's only natural that you can't trust me, my lady. But please give me a chance. I will prove to you that I'm useful. She continued, until then. You said my perceptiveness wasn't bad, my lady. Penelope asked with some suspicion, are you being sincere? Emily's expression and words were filled with determination. Please keep that needle, my lady. If I'm still untrustworthy in the future, you can give it to the Duke. Penelope thought incredulously, is this also part of the game's plot? She thought to herself, if she were serving a young lady in name only, like me, she certainly wouldn't receive any additional rewards. Until now, I've assumed she's been obedient because I hold leverage over her with that needle. Is she truly on my side? Penelope observed Emily's face, scrutinizing her expression. But her face didn't look like she was lying. In that case, Penelope spoke up. I ask you, Emily, to return the remaining jewels to their original places. Emily looked up with a bright smile and addressed her, Miss, if that's the case. Emily stood up and said, thank you, Mississippi. I'll go and take care of it right away. Penelope replied, all right. You may leave now. Emily responded, yes, miss. Emily beamed as if she had achieved something momentous. From now on, I pledge my complete loyalty to you, Miss Penelope, she declared. Penelope thought to herself, I understand that believing in things like reformation is unrealistic in real life. She continued her thought, but having a mature person by my side isn't a bad thing. Suddenly, the system appeared with a mission: improve relationships with those around you. Duke reputation points +10. Total points 15. Penelope sighed in exasperation. How troublesome. She recalled the image of a man and pondered, I can't do anything unless Vinter appears before me. Searching for a man I only met once in the Imperial Palace seems strange. She thought, if there's still no reply, well, I have to resort to Yvonne's methods. Suddenly, there was a rattling sound outside the door. The door burst open, and a gust of wind rushed into the room. A rustling sound nearby made her wonder, what's that? She glanced around. What was that just now? She wondered. What was that sound when I said, what's that? She looked to the side. A small, tiny rabbit was perched on her knee. The rabbit sitting on Penelope's lap let out a cute squeak. Startled, Penelope blinked. Huh, she uttered, then looked again, asking herself, what is this? She thought. A rabbit. Did you come in through the window? The chubby rabbit, being stared at, continued to squeak. Penelope looked on with a mixture of curiosity and surprise, unable to speak as she stared at it quizzically. Stroking the rabbit, she asked, how on earth did you get in here? This is the second floor. Were you blown in by the wind? The rabbit squeaked again. She thought to herself, I'm talking to a rabbit. What if it understands and answers me? My heart might leap out of my chest. As she continued to pet the rabbit, a voice suddenly said, your request has been fulfilled. Penelope yelped, startled, and brushed the rabbit away. It hopped to another spot. Flustered, she asked, what? What was that? I thought I heard someone speak just now. The voice spoke again. Your request has been fulfilled. If you want answers, come directly to the trading company. It was the rabbit speaking. Penelope gasped. Whoa. She wondered, why does that voice sound familiar? The rabbit continued, we are the White Rabbit Trading Company. Now, if you'll excuse us, we must be going. With that, it vanished, leaving a strong gust of wind in Penelope's face. When Penelope opened her eyes, it was gone. Only empty space remained. She wondered to herself, what in the world is going on? She thought back to Vinter's White Rabbit Trading Company. It operates in normal mode to hide his identity. He usually contacts Yvonne through small animals, like this. I thought it was a network ability. These thoughts surfaced, but at that time, animals couldn't talk to people like this, could they? Could he also be a little crazy? She continued to think, no way. There's no way among 5 people no one understands me. But first, the answer I wanted has arrived. I'll try going to see him. Then suddenly, the system displayed another notification. A new chapter has begun between the possible mage, Vinabiroth. Do you want to teleport to the trading company and meet him immediately? She said, wait a minute. I'll get ready. Bustling around for a while, she searched for things while thinking, a handkerchief as a return gift. I also have to prepare gemstones as a thank you. Bring a mask and cloak too, because that place operates on a membership system. And a moment later, she cheerfully said, all done, Bo. She teleported directly to the trading company's building. She said, this is the place, the background that appeared in the game. Before she could knock, the sliding door creaked open. She looked at the opening door in surprise. She immediately wondered, what's this? So creepy. Isn't he watching me from somewhere? She stepped into the room. There was no one inside, only a space filled with books, just books. She continued inside, looking around thoughtfully, worried. This place is empty. I received the message and came immediately. Why is there no one here? He's known as a high-level information broker, but not even a single employee in a normal room like this. Then, she helplessly consoled herself. Well, that's why he sent that creepy rabbit. She said, I'll wait a bit and see. Suddenly, there was a loud thud. This made her turn around, startled, and exclaim, what was that? An earthquake? She thought, no, if it were an earthquake, then. She looked outside. Outside was still normal. The room continued to rumble, making her anxious and frightened as she looked at a spot and thought, it's coming from inside the office. A shimmering door appeared there, making her think, that's it. That's the door I saw in a fantasy movie. Could Vinna be inside? There's no handle. How do I open it? The system announced again, hidden quest detected. Unravel the mage's secret. A secret mage space discovered. Do you want to try entering? The reward for this quest was a secret item. She looked closely and wondered, the mage's secret. The female protagonist, Penelope, put her hand to her chin, thinking, I don't know why, but I have a feeling that this is a make-or-break situation. Otherwise, even if it affected Halgandu, I wouldn't care about someone else's secrets. It's also unclear what the reward is. If it's a hidden quest, it's probably not mandatory. Or should I come back another time? But then she thought again. Isn't the reward for completing the first hidden quest the option to enable shortcuts? Up until now, he's been my lifesaver in this world. If so, this could very well be a clue to the difficulty level, which even I didn't know when playing this game. She suddenly realized, that's right. It's a reward, not a punishment. And I've come all this way, so I have to meet Vinter. Having thought it through, she stepped forward. There was a chime. The shimmering door appeared before her. Beyond it was a brightly lit room. Stepping into this room from the open space, she thought to herself, it's so spacious. Looking from the outside, who would have known this building had such a space? Penelope looked around as she thought. Even with the system's instantaneous teleportation support, she mused, this world really does have something like magic, doesn't it? Suddenly, a loud crashing sound echoed. Penelope startled, thinking another tremor. It seemed to emanate from the end of the hallway. Then a voice shouted, "Hey, you idiot, adjust that thing." Penelope turned, her face a mask of confusion. She calmly walked towards the sound, thinking, who is that? It doesn't sound like Vinter's voice. Then another voice asked like this. No, like this. Penelope wondered suspiciously, is that a child's voice? She continued walking, thinking, I need to find a place to peek in. What's going on in there? After finding a vantage point, she gasped in astonishment. She breathed, stepping into a wondrous, shimmering space. The magical, starlit atmosphere left her speechless. Looking at the magical stones and dinosaur skeletons, Penelope realized she was in a museum. Amazed and delighted by the surroundings, she exclaimed, wow, this place is amazing. Absolutely incredible. Someone was chanting in a strange, ancient language, holding a magic wand aloft. The incantation shattered the protective ice layer into hundreds of pieces, much to Penelope's surprise. The children cheered excitedly. Finally, a corner of it is exposed. We did it. A child wearing a lion mask said to their friends, hey, be careful. If what's inside breaks, we're toast with the owner. Penelope, observing the wand in the children's hands, guessed they were young mages. Inside the block of ice was a treasure chest. The system announced the detection of a rare artifact, a relic of the ancient mages, one of the artifacts Vinter had found in the northern mountains. It was an item once used by ancient mages. Penelope's eyes widened in surprise at the word relic. Hearing the children say, let's try again. This time you guys go to the left and we'll go to the right. Penelope grew anxious, knowing they were about to use the same spell again. She panicked, thinking the relic should be handled with the utmost care. If the spell were used again, not only the ice, but also the box inside would shatter. To the surprise and confusion of the young mages, Penelope stood protectively in front of the precious artifact. She shouted at the children, stop. The boy with the lion mask recognized Penelope as Masked Lady, as she always wore mask. The child with the cat mask exclaimed, whoa, who's this old lady? Penelope felt a pang of annoyance at being called an old lady when she was still a young woman. I'm not an old lady. Penelope corrected, exasperated. I'm here as a guest. Who are you? And what are you doing here? She then realized that children were inherently vulnerable. The children, curious about her appearance, whispered amongst themselves, who is she to the owner? Does the owner have a friend we don't know about? Penelope, noticing the children whispering about her, quickly told them to stop and be quiet. The children obediently fell silent. Penelope told the children they were damaging an important artifact. Seeing their confusion, Penelope asked them about the stake and hammer, wondering if their teacher hadn't taught them this method of breaking ice. The children fell silent. One of them said their teacher had actually given them the tools, but because the ice was so frozen, they couldn't break it. Furthermore, it had magic that made it regenerate quickly. If this were in the merchant lord's hands, a single spell would easily do the trick. Penelope sighed and asked the children to give her the ice-breaking tools. The sound of chipping echoed through the museum. The ice cracked as the stake was driven in. The children were amazed and admiring of Penelope's help. Penelope explained that this was the only way to retrieve the artifact without damaging it. Don't think using magic is easy, she said, because you have to melt each piece of ice individually and then break it apart by hand. It was fortunate the children had used magic to heat the water, allowing it to break so quickly. After her demonstration, Penelope let the children practice. They enthusiastically set to work. While helping the children break the ice, Penelope thought to herself that she had expected to be overwhelmed with assignments and excavations in college. She had read about excavations countless times in books, but she never thought she would actually have to do it. In this world she had suddenly been pulled into, everything was different from what she had imagined, and she found it fascinating. After they were halfway done, Penelope's joints ached. The children, however, were eager to continue. Despite their exhaustion, they were proud they hadn't dented the box. Penelope told them they had all worked hard, but the moment turned awkward when the children called her grandma, leaving Penelope speechless. Before she could respond, a voice called out from behind. The man said he had used magic to prevent ordinary people from noticing or entering this place. The man wearing the rabbit mask was Vinter Burgundy, the one the children called the Merchant Lord. He saw Penelope wearing a mask and assumed she was also a mage. Vinter's gaze was cold as he looked at Penelope. Penelope was flustered, unable to explain that she was here because of a quest given by the game system. Vinter pointed his wand at Penelope, and she wasn't sure whether to remove her mask or let him figure out her identity. Suddenly, the affection meter above Vinter's head dropped to 8%. This startled Penelope.